Hello, Pocatello.
Today we have Nathan Chandler. He's the owner of Confections Bakery, and he's also the winner of the Netflix Blue Ribbon Baking Championship.
Yeah, you got it.
Sorry.
It's a mouthful.
I kept looking.
It's a lot of B's.
It is. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep.
So we're really excited to have him here. So for listeners who may not be, listeners who may be meeting you for the first time, who is Nathan Chandler and where does your baking journey begin?
Well, my name's Nathan Chandler. I'm originally from Idaho Falls. I've been in Pocatello for 10, 11 years. Baking journey-wise, I've always loved to bake. Baked with my grandparents growing up. My mom is an excellent baker. My older sister kind of had a little bakery business for a little while that she did. But I started working at an elementary school when I was right out of high school. And we worked with special needs kids. A lot of the time we worked with fairly aggressive children. And so it was kind of a hard job to have. And so we all tried to figure out things that we could do to uplift everybody every week or whatever. And so I started something called Cupcake Friday at the elementary school. I really had no idea what I was doing, but I took a cupcake in every Friday. I did a different flavor, and it kind of really snowballed my journey of oh, maybe I do love this more than I did. And they called us the Falls Valley Fabulous Five because I worked at Falls Valley Elementary School. But those four ladies really were very encouraging. And I talk about them on the show, which I was grateful for that opportunity to kind of bring light to them and the work that they've done for 20 plus years with kids and things like that. But yeah, they every week, and they were very good at constructive, oh, this one has too much frosting or this one has too much flavor. So that really kind of started where I was oh, maybe I love this. And then I transitioned into a couple other jobs, but there always was an underlying oh, I went home after cutting hair for 5 years to make a cake for somebody. There always was just kind of that niche inside that I was oh, I want to do this full time. But yeah, that's really where it started, was being at the school and kind of really just trying to find something to do something fun for people. So
yeah, I remember when I first started following you, didn't you win something at the Blackfoot Fair too?
Yeah.
With the Harry Potter cake?
Yeah.
So I'm a Harry Potter fanatic.
That's funny. That was the very first one.
I'm an overgrown child.
Oh yeah. Oh, people come into the bakery all the time, and our little calendar thing on the counter is Hogwarts, and it has the numbers in it. And so often I say our because I run the bakery with my sister Ashley, but our mom is from England. And so we have a couple of Union Jacks with just the British flag on the counter. And people are always oh, is that a castle in England? And I'm it is in my mind. I'm it's not a real castle, but in my mind it is. But yeah, I entered and I've always loved the cakes at the fair. Those people there that enter are incredible. But I entered there, I want to say that was in 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. It was a long time ago.
So I've been following you for a long time.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah. But I entered that Harry Potter cake, and it was Masquerade was the theme. This is crazy. This is all flooding back to me. But I did Harry Potter book pages that I did on edible paper, and I did them on this mask. And I ended up getting first place in a beginner category, which in my mind, I was this is nuts that, I would have won anything. But now I actually am on the committee at the fair that I run that with two other ladies. Oh. And so it's very quickly, it was a very cool, full circle with this show because the show was fair themed. And so I was able to kind of completely full circle to wanting to enter and wanting to be in that competition world to then being in an actual competition setting with a fair theme. And so but yeah, that is also where it kind of started, was wanting to be a part of the fair too. So
that was so cool. So are you a Gryffindor?
I'm a Slytherin.
You're a Slytherin?
I'm a Slytherin, funny enough.
The test told me I'm a Slytherin, but I am not accepting it.
Oh, see, it's funny because
Ravenclaw.
I'm the opposite. If the test tells me anything else, I'm absolutely not. I'm
the test tells me I'm a Slytherin, and I say
I think at the end of those, not to Harry Potter nerd out for 5 seconds, but
no,
I think at the end of those books, you really realize that a lot of those Slytherin people really were good people. And so I've never, it sounds dumb, but I'm never embarrassed when people are oh, you're a Slytherin? I'm yeah, there are good people in there. I'm listen, Severus Snape was a good guy, okay?
Yeah,
I'm Team Severus Snape, so I'm all about it. So Voldemort, maybe not.
But I continued on into the fan fiction, so
it
didn't last for me.
People are shocked. Our Christmas fundraiser we did a couple of years ago, we do one every Christmas for Sika, which is for people who don't know, is local. I believe it's a nonprofit, if I'm not incorrect on that. But they are just a community-based advocacy center, and we do a fundraiser every year for Christmas toys, things like that to take into there. But we did a big Harry Potter themed one time, and these people came in and they were big Harry Potter fans. And I was oh, I don't think you understand. I'm and I am from a family of 5. All 5 of us, every single sibling loves Harry Potter. We have had parties. My family has a birthday party for him every year. It just is we're big Potter nuts.
I'm so jealous of you. My family won't.
we just force them. And my mom loves it. And she's British. So that kind of pulls it in. So I think people have always just been in my family like excited about it because my mom loves it. And so it's good.
Well, we'll try not to geek out on that for too long. That makes me love you.
Yeah.
Well, how do you feel like growing up in Southeast Idaho influenced your creativity and your work ethic?
I think a lot of Southeast Idaho people could relate to this. There are things to do here. And if you look into that, there is, but like at the core of like, you hear so often here, like, oh, there's nothing to do here. Or like, there's so many things to do. But I think growing up, I was kind of that belief system. So I found things to do. And my mom is very creative. Both of my parents listening to this will die with me saying this because they're just not these kind of people. But both my parents are so artistic. They're both so creative. And they pass that on to all five of us. But like both my parents can draw amazingly well. My mom is a very gifted sewer, things like that. So I always had that craftiness coming from them. But I think things like the Eastern Idaho State Fair and things like that give you the opportunity to like have creativity within the community and things like that. And that really business wise. And I tell everybody that's in the baking community, like if you can get involved in things like that, like your name gets out there so much faster. But growing up here, I mean, the fair was a staple. I don't know how many people listening to this will even remember this, but years and years ago in the Idaho Falls Temple Visitor Center, they used to do a gingerbread decorating competition, and it was massive. Like people came from all over, and people were building like the White House. Like they were those men and women. I say women because it mostly was women, but men and women that decorated those, like they were like expert level, like they were insane. And then they moved it to the church, and then now I think it's at the Museum of Idaho in Idaho Falls. But that was another one that when I went to that, I was just like, oh, locally, like we have a lot of talent here for like baking, decorating, things like that. But yeah, I got a lot of inspiration from stuff like that. And like I said, my mom, like that was always kind of and my family also, you just made stuff. So like like we always made the joke, like we would go to craft fairs, like my mom would see something and like she wouldn't buy it. She'd go home and make it. And so like growing up in this area, like I said, like you just kind of found things to do and stuff like that. And for me, that was more of an artistic, like I was inspired by the people that I saw and like the things that I was seeing. And like my mom would go get rocks from down like by the river and she would like paint them and make these people out of them. And like I got a lot of that from her. But yeah, growing up in this area, like there's so much to see and so many like community events that you can go to. And like the art really inspired me. I'm a big jewelry wearer. And so like I love watching or seeing like everybody's art that they sell with jewelry and rings and things like that. So yeah, living in this area, there's a lot to, like I said, I think it's always that cliche, like there's nothing here. And I'm like, there's everything here. You just have to look, you just have to go like, and it's all, and I've said this a lot, like, especially the last couple of years, it's all in participation. Like if you show up to Revive at 5 or the little shops at Old Town or like things like that here, like our art community and things like that are very vibrant here. People just don't know.
So cool.
So people just need you need to get out, give it a try, go to a few things.
Craft fairs are great. I was going to say people would come in and take pictures of the stuff I would sew and then go home and sew it.
Totally.
So
totally.
I'm like, tell your mom, and sometimes buy this stuff.
Yes, and it's so funny because what we learned for so long is there is like a very, very small group of people that do that go and see it and make it at home. But the majority of people are like, oh, I could never do that. Which I will say, as a business owner, thank heavens for the people who say, oh, I could never do that. Because then you support my business, things like that. But yeah, no, I have said that before. Or now I feel like we're all to the age where we go to craft fairs and we're like, just buy it. Yeah, I don't want to have to make it.
You won't make it.
Yeah, no, totally. Or you'll won't do it.
You'll think about it tomorrow.
Yeah, literally. In 5 years. 5 years we'll make it.
That's like a sales pitch. I've literally said that. Somebody's come back into my booth and been like, I thought about that necklace. I'm like, and it'll sell, so you better get it. Yeah. Is that how we met? Did I make silverware?
I think we did. That was the very first time. Yeah.
I feel like, because I've done
we did,
so
and it
markets.
Was at PV Uncorked.
Okay.
Oh, not PV Uncorked. I say that every time. And Penny's.
Crafts and Drafts.
Yes, Crafts and Drafts.
Yes.
Yeah, my friend Shannon Boyle sells the most beautiful wood.
Yes.
I don't know why. Thank you. I don't know why I'm at a loss for it. She does an amazing job. Lumber Girl is her name, which is adorable. But yeah, she's been a good friend of mine for a lot of years. But we met there.
They bought a drum light from me.
Oh, awesome.
So they have this like lamp out of an old drum. So I'm a repurposer.
I love that.
And I love to sew. Yeah. So I do, brand new stuff too.
That,
but I feel like it was the ring jewelry or the spoon jewelry.
Yeah.
People get, they are attracted
it's great.
to that.
Yeah, I love that.
So cool. I'm like, I know I know we've seen each other so many times.
Yes, I do go to a lot of those.
Okay.
So,
Well, I love everything you just said is part of what why we're doing this, because there's so much to do. There's so much to see.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is our music scene. I talk about it probably every episode, but the art scene here is great.
Great.
I have met some of the most talented artists here just, on like, just at the farmer's market.
And thank heavens they stay. Yeah. Like, that's one thing that I always say, like, branch out, do your thing, go, travel, do whatever. But I'm so thankful for the talented people we have that have stayed in this town. That have, like, I work, the bakery is inside of Flowers by LD downtown, and LD is celebrating 38 years of having his flower shop this year. And I think so often, like, our community is so much better for the people like LD and people like that have stayed. Like, I don't know his last name, but Stan owns several buildings downtown, and Gates owns an art gallery. And I think, thank heavens we have people like him that have stayed here, because we wouldn't have the art, the community, things like that we have if it wasn't Kid J, like places, people like that. Like, if we didn't have those people that stayed here, they're talented enough to go to a bigger city, and that always sounds, I feel like such a stupid thing to say. Like, you can go to a bigger city, but I hear that all the time. Like, you haven't opened a bakery like in a bigger city. And I'm like, that was never the goal. Like, my goal was never to leave to like expand to be bigger. And so I'm always thankful that the people do stay here and artists stay here and things like that, because we need it. So it's good that people are here.
I feel that way about these guys.
Yeah.
Travis and Cody.
Yeah.
I feel that way about these guys. You should definitely go check out their work.
Yeah. Well,
sure. Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What LD does is art too. Like some of the arrangements that I've seen from him, he put together these, I wish I knew what type of flowers they were. These beautiful centerpieces for the Women's Symposium for businesswomen in Pocatello. And they were gorgeous. And I was just like, I've never seen flowers look so pretty. Yeah. And it was the color combination. It was like a burgundy, orange, gold. It was beautiful.
I always tell people I'm the most blown away by what he does in a time frame. Like, there's these incredible casket sprays and all of these things, and it's 12 minutes. And he's created this insane. And I go back there to help him, and I'm like 45 minutes later, and I like barely have my greenery in the foam. And I'm like, here he has got 4 events done, and it just, for him, it's so natural.
He's not overthinking it.
Yeah, no.
He's just like, okay, this will balance this, and this will.
And funny you should say that, because he's made that comment before. Like, the more I sit and think, like, how am I going to put this in? Where should I put this rose? He goes, the worse it gets. He goes, so if I just go, it just kind of flows. And so which is an art thing. I mean, creativity wise. So.
I have type A personality myself.
Right.
So sometimes I'm like, should I do this? And it takes me way too long.
Oh yeah.
So that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, while you were on the show, did you feel a lot of support from home? I feel like I saw a lot of support from
I definitely did after. Like, when I was there, I knew regardless of how the outcome would be. I was on to bot back for a second. I was on the Food Network in 2019, and that had a huge whatever here in town. Like, and that one was it was very traumatic in my mind. Other people watching it probably didn't see it that way, but my thing like fell over at the end. I was devastated. It was this whole thing. But Pocatello was so supportive. Like, I was all over the news at that point, and that was years and years ago. But I knew being there, I was very thankful. They had talked about the Eastern Idaho State Fair a lot on the show because it was a fair-themed show, but they talked a lot about Pocatello. And when the show came out, actually, it was, I think, East Idaho News, when I did an interview with them, they said, do you know that they discussed Pocatello and the Eastern Idaho State Fair on every single episode that you were on? And watching it back, they didn't do that with every contestant. So I'm very thankful that they brought that type of support to Pocatello. Yeah. But yeah, coming here, it's wild. It's still to this day, like, I'll be places and people will be like, hey, like, we watched you on that show. Like, that was amazing. And the really cool part is that's always followed by, like, thanks for, like, showing that good people are in Pocatello, or like, thanks for showing that like Pocatello is a good town. Yeah. And it's funny because I love Pocatello. I'm grateful to be here, but that was never, this sounds like I'm being unsupportive of Pocatello, which is not what I mean, but that was never my intent in going on there. Like, I was never like, I'm going to go show people Pocatello is amazing. Like, I just talked about the town that I live in and that I love and that I'm supported by, but I was shocked the outcome of, like, people from all over the world have been like, your town sounds so fun. And I'm like, our town is so fun. Like, it's cool to, I mean, told people at one point, like, I was waking up to like 1,500 messages every day, like on Instagram, that people were like, oh my gosh, we watched your show. This is amazing. Like, Idaho sounds amazing. Like, we love, your family and whatever. And so, like, it was cool to see just like global support that we got. But Pocatello, I mean, good grief. I think I was on the cover of the Idaho State Journal like 4 times. So, I mean, our town they were very excited, which was good. Because I wanted that. Like, as soon as I knew that I had won, obviously, the show finished in October and it didn't come out until the following August. So I had a long 9 months of being like, okay, how's this going to be perceived? I knew I won, obviously, so that was going to be good. But I knew Pocatello would be excited. I had no idea it would be what it was. So, yeah, people have been been very supportive of us.
So. I refreshed my memory on the last episode, and that was it like a gray and white, like
the marbled cake.
Oh,
you know, and it's
so
funny, I tell people, haven't told very many people the story, but when I got to the end at that last episode, I was like, I've got to do something. I kind of had an idea. I knew that I had to do a 3-tiered cake. They had told us the day before. And so I thought, okay, like I got to figure something out. But that wasn't really what my plan was. And then I thought, okay, what if I do kind of like a modern, kind of weird. I knew Felicia was doing kind of a colorful, like bringing like her Latina heritage and like things like that. And I knew that Eileen was doing a chocolate cake. So I thought, all right, I need to do something that's going to be like a little more stately and like standing out. But even in the moment, like with marbling fondant, you never know how that's going to go. And so I thought this is either going to be hideous or I'm going to nail it.
It was beautiful.
And thank heavens when I rolled it out, in fact, Brian Ford, which was one of the judges, was standing back behind the cameras as I was rolling it. And he just kept shaking his head and like he would walk away. And in my mind at the moment, because, you know, you mess with your brain, I was like, oh, he hates it. Like, this doesn't look good. And then like I would look down at it and I was like, no, this is turning out. I think he's shaking his head because like it's going well. But yeah, I was that of all 8 of the episodes, I'm the proudest of that cake at the end. Just how it looked, how it turned out. And so it helped me win. I mean, that is that I knew. I tell people all the time, of all 8 episodes, when they sliced the carrot cake and they slid it out, it was the only moment that I was like, oh, I maybe have got it, like based off of the way that it looked. Because and I tell a lot of people, and anybody that's interested in being on competition shows like this, it's a mental game. Like they're very good at being like, how do you think you did today? Like, do you think you did okay? And then you lay in your hotel at night and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I did horrible, you know? So it was, but yeah, that cake at the end, I'm probably the most proud of that for sure. So.
Well, it was funny too, because I said, and you're only going to have 2 hours to make all of these desserts, in your eyes, you're like,
yeah. Yeah, it was like, wild. Yeah.
Your face stood out of the whole group because you were like,
well, and I think a lot of people think that's...
And you pulled it off.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that's pretend. And so I think a lot of people say like, oh, you know, you'll have 3.5 hours to do this bake, you know, blah, 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 start to finish. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, yeah. They like bring in a cake and you like frost it at the end. And I'm like, nope. You do all of that start to finish. You utilize a freezer a lot. You utilize each other a lot. I mean, Felicia and I have become, and I tell everybody this, like she's one of my closest friends, but like to this day still, but like on that show, like we ran everything by each other. We didn't know each other going in. We had never met. We like fell in love in the lobby as soon as we met each other. Talked to her every single day. But she, every single thing that we would do, I would look over at her and be like, what are you doing? Like, do you think that this, and she's like, put it in the freezer. Like, I've baked for 10 years. She's older than I am. I won't say much older because then she'll be offended. She's older than I am. She's baked a lot longer than I have. But there were still times that she's like, what am I supposed to do with this? And so like, it was neat to be able to like bounce things like that off of each other. But yeah, in those moments when they tell you, you know, 5 hours, or even when I was on the Food Network, they were like, you have 2 hours to make and decorate 6 sugar cookies. It's on a timer. Like they don't show you because they don't want you to be distracted. But there is a culinary expert, is what they call them, that walks around and says like, and I still hear her name was Lori. I still hear her in the back of my mind when she's like, bakers, you have 12 minutes. It still like haunts me to this day when I'm like working in the kitchen. I'm like 7 minutes and I like freak out. But yeah, those are all very real. And that's one of the biggest questions I get asked. Like, did you actually have 3 hours? And I'm like, no, you actually do. Like it's very time allotted. And when they are done, you're done. Like and people don't realize, I mean, in that barn, and that was an actual barn. A lot of people ask me that too, but inside that barn, there's probably 150 people that are working in there, and they're like the quietest, most structurally organized people running around. But when they yell time, your hands is off, I can't even talk correctly. Your hands are off of your items and you have to step away. And like, there are production people to be like, nope, step back. Because if you keep touching it, they'll disqualify you. They'll, you know, so it's stressful to try to get it done in that amount of time, but
wow,
it's a wild ride for sure.
When I saw the cake, I was like, how?
Yeah.
But that is so cool. Wow. So how did you end up applying for the Blue Ribbon Baking Championship?
So I think once you've been on TV before, which I had in 2019, you're kind of in that realm. So I think your name kind of already kind of circulates through. But they actually reached out to me, which I feel very, very privileged by. A lot of people are like, oh, is it? And I did apply. Don't get me wrong. Like after she reached out, but I tell everybody this story just because I think it's funny. At the time, she couldn't tell me that it was for Netflix. So she sent me a message and said, hey, would you be interested in this new baking show? It's going to be fair themed. And she actually left it in a comment under one of my Blue Ribbon pictures that I had won at the fair. And I was like, this girl's crazy. I was at Ridley's and I was like, yeah, no way. Well, I messaged her because I was like, okay, this is what you thought with the Food Network. You thought it was fake. It wasn't. And so I I sent her a message. She called me and she's like, hi, I'm Lindsay. And I'll never forget that phone call. I was literally buying pizza sauce at Ridley's down the aisle. And I was like having a panic attack because I was like, oh no, this is going to happen again. Like there's a possibility that they might ask you. And she said, I can't tell you what the network is called, but it rhymes with Netflix. And I said, you're kidding. And she's like, no, like, and they're looking for a self-taught male baker is one of the categories they're looking for. And she goes, you fit that criteria. They love that you're a part of the fair. So that was the last week in July. And I did Zoom interviews, applications, things like that until middle of September. So it was a long, long process. I had a lot of interviews that I had to answer a lot of questions. And it was a lot of like on the fly, like, okay, we hand you lemons, dried thyme, this, and this. Now tell me right now what you're going to make. And you had to be able to say like, oh, I would food process the thyme so that I had it as an accent and I would put it into like a lemon shortbread cookie. And like, you had to be able to do things like that, which is hard on the fly, but going onto those shows, you have to do that. So it was about a 8-week process of doing that. Went from a pool of 300 bakers down to 2, down to 100. And I believe it went to 50. And then I didn't hear anything for like a week and a half. So I just went about my life. I was like, oh, we're done. Like this was over. That was fun. My sister and I were both like, and obviously you cannot tell anybody that you're in the application process. I run the bakery with my sister. She had to know, obviously, because we would be in the middle of making a wedding cake and I'd be like, I have to go do an interview. Like, and I had to like make sure I was dressed nice. I had to like be presentable, whatever, covered in flour. But the final interview, she said, is this something that you can leave your business for a month? And I said, oh, no way. I said 30 days. I said, there's absolutely not. And she's like, think about it and call me back. And I said, okay. So I talked to my sister and we actually have 5 wholesale accounts that we do here in town. So we bake for Palette, the neighborhood bistro, and Mocha Madness, both Idaho Coffee Company locations and both Glean Coffee locations. So apart from this, so thankful to them and for their local support and things like that to be able to go hand in hand with them. But that was my biggest concern is they've been with me since day one. They've supported us since day one. And I thought, I can't leave you for 30 days, 30 days of you not having baked goods, us not making money. And I was like sobbing, talking to my sister. And I was like, this is such a cool opportunity. Bear in mind, I didn't know what the money was at this point. I was just like, it's another opportunity to be on TV. You're stupid to say no, kind of thing. And so my sister sat me down the one night and she's like, you're an idiot. You're obviously doing it. Like you need to go. And so I'm so thankful to have her. But yeah, I said yes. And then they actually told me I had like 12 days. They were like, okay, and then you're flying to an undisclosed location. So like, here's the information. You'll have a plane ticket. They will pick you up. You'll meet this person. This is her picture. This is her name. She'll pick you up. We cannot tell you where you're going. Like you can't, and I knew like where I was flying to. I'm not allowed to talk about the location, but I knew where I was flying. Obviously,
I was going to say, that's like the scariest part of that. I'm like, we're going to take you somewhere. You're not going to know where you're going,
totally.
who you're talking
and
to.
And the funny part is we were in the middle of nowhere when we got there. And so they just kept driving and driving and driving. And I was like, oh my gosh, where are they taking us? And then all of a sudden we just arrived to this like magical barn. And that barn is real, but just in the middle of like, I'm going to exaggerate here because I don't know how many acres it was, but it felt like 300 acres. Like it was massive. But this beautiful barn is with all this production and the carnival was there. So we pulled up, all of us, the first day that we were filming, and I was like, what in the world is happening? Like, this is crazy. And then it just spiraled to be more and more crazy every day. But I was like, oh, and we didn't know Sandra Lee was the host. We didn't know Jason Biggs was the host. So going into an application process like that, you don't know any of that. Like, you don't know who the hosts are. You don't know. So when you get there, like, and I tell people on that first episode when I walk in and Jason, or when we all walk in, Jason says, welcome to my barn. We had no idea it was going to be Jason Biggs. So of course, we were dying. I watched Sandra Lee all growing up. So when she walked, I love semi-homemade. Yeah, totally. And she's so lovely. She's the nicest lady. But when she walked in, I was gobsmacked because I was a big Paula Deen guy all growing up. I adore her to this day. But I watched her, Sandra Lee, and Giada De Laurentiis every day after school. I loved those 3 women.
You're so much younger than me. That was I was a stay-at-home mom. At that time. And you just literally named it. And Rachel Ray.
Yep.
And who else? I loved, I would go back and forth between DIY, food, and HGTV all day long.
Well, and it's funny because Sandra Lee would make like little jokes about her show. And like a few of like the contestants that were on there like hadn't watched a lot of it. I knew every single time what she was talking about. And I was like, oh yeah, you said this, Paula Deen said this. Like I loved those shows. And my mom would give me a hard time because she'd be like, you're missing Paula Deen. And I'm like, I'm coming. Like I loved those. So, but yeah, application process, everybody else that, not to jump back to that, but like everybody else that was on the show, most of them applied or they were reached out to through social media. But it's a long application. You have to send in a video, like talking about yourself. And really at the core of things, maybe Netflix wouldn't love me saying this, but like, I think they just need to make sure you're not crazy. Like they want to make sure you'll be able to handle pressure. And like, fortunately for me, I had been on a baking, I don't know if they're called reality shows or a baking competition show, it's probably a better word, but it felt like reality. But I think they had watched that. So they were like, he could handle it, obviously. And my thing fell apart. I still showed up. I went to the judging. So they were like, oh, he'll be okay. And they did ask me that in all of my stuff, which brought back a lot of like traumatic whatever. But they said,
redemption. You got redemption.
And the one production girl said, this will be like a really good redeeming thing for you.
Yeah.
But the horror in my mind the whole time is I was like, what if it isn't? Like, what if I'm just bad on TV? Like, what if it, and that I was very afraid every episode that I was like, if you flop again, you're in big trouble. Like, this is not going to be good. And even winning at the end, like I've told people a million times, like I walked to my hotel room with this ribbon and I sat there by myself. Like my partner was on the last episode, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen it. But obviously we're talking about me winning, so it's not that much of a spoiler. But I sat in my hotel room with the ribbon and I sat there till like 3 or 4 in the morning and I was like, okay, this is cool, but like, I'm not sure when like the reality hits of the fact that like, this isn't real, you know? So, but yeah, it was a very long process to get there. And then it flew by. Like I tell people we filmed for 30 days and people are like 30 days. I'm like, I felt like I was there for 5, like it flew by, but yeah, it's a long process to get on those shows.
I can honestly say that I felt like watching you was really easy. You're very natural on camera, and like I love the rings.
Oh yeah,
I handmade jewelry, so I loved the rings. I just loved how animated you are.
Yeah.
So you can let your cake PTSD go now.
Yes, right.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Totally.
PTSD.
And I'm trying to think about
what would we call it? Like
I'm trying to think what the other word is that everybody always uses, and it's that like it's not PTSD, but it's that like syndrome where you like think that you're not good enough all the time.
Oh, imposter.
Yes, yeah.
We talk about that a lot on this.
I really
podcast.
had, and I tell people like I didn't know what that was. Like I had never had a panic attack before in my life. When I got back, like I was in the shower after I got back from the Food Network. I had burned my hand really bad on that show. And I was standing in the shower and I like couldn't breathe. I canceled a bunch of cake orders. Like I was terrified to bake for people because I was like, people are about to see that like I'm a flop. Like is what it is. And the most devastating part emotionally for me was on that episode, I made an oven and it was my grandpa's oven and I like dedicated it to him. And he always wore this little white plastic apron. He was the cutest. And I still have that apron, but I made that little apron out of a cookie and everything fell apart. Like everything broke. My dog had just died. So I made this little mat with like a little dog. So it was all very personal. So when it all fell apart, I was like, oh, my life is literally over in like a lot of capacities. But we actually had a big viewing party at the Sand Trap. And our good friend Corey owns that. And so he was like, oh, have like the viewing party here. And I remember when it fell, like you audibly could hear like people being devastated. And I remember it almost makes me like emotional to think about it. Cause like it was very like people were so sad for me. And I remember thinking like, oh, people feel bad for me. Like they don't think that like I'm an idiot. So like that was very reassuring.
Oh, good.
But for a long time, like my partner would say like, oh, like, do you have any cakes this weekend? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I'm done. This is crazy. Like, people think that I'm so stupid. And then all these people were like, we need cookies from you. You are on the Food Network. So like, I have said this for many, many years, but I'm very thankful to Pocatello for that. Because had they not have done that, I don't think I still would be a barber, probably. Because I loved to bake, but I was so terrified after that had happened. And then now, luckily, that this has happened. And I have a little display case in the bakery with all my Food Network stuff in it. And now this one, and I tell people, I say, it is a nice like thing for me to walk down there and be like, that was like, in my mind, and a lot of people don't view it like this, but that was a very dark whatever for me because like it didn't go well. I didn't win. And I'm so thankful to the girl that won. Leslie and I are still really good friends. So like that was very cool. But like I'm able to look at both of those shadow boxes now and be like, this was really amazing. This really wasn't. And then on the other side of the shadow box, I made Brian Urlacher's wedding cake, who plays for the Chicago Bears. So I have his signed jersey in there and a picture of him and I with the cake. And so I'm like, there was that. And then the Food Network happened. And then this happened. So I'm like, it was like a highlight and then a dark period. And then like, this is amazing, obviously. And so, but it's a good reminder that like, sometimes your life doesn't go the way you think it's going to. Right. And I did go in cocky, I will say, like, and even my partner and I have had that conversation a lot. Like, I was not concerned going to the Food Network. I was like, I've got this in the bag. Like, I make cookies for a living. This is not going to be hard. Well, then I got there with women who had made cookies for a living for 30 years, and I had done it for 2. And I was like, how are you just like whipping through this? And I just like, am like struggle bus here, you know? And so, but yeah, so it was nice to have a little bit of a redemption moment for sure.
And maybe that was like your moment to level up and say, hey, I need to challenge myself.
Totally.
Sometimes we have to challenge ourselves. If you get set in your ways, one thing I've noticed is I do a lot with technology and I get set in my ways where I do the exact same processes over and over. And then my 14-year-old kid will come in and say, why are you doing it like
always
that?
Humbled by a 12-year-old.
Let me save you some time. And I'm like, oh.
I always tell people too, there was an episode on this show where they brought people in to taste things. They were called the fair goers. But I said, that's the most scared I was of all of that, because I worked in an elementary school for 12 years. Kids are brutally honest. So when those kids were eating dessert, I was like, oh, and I remember telling Sandra Lee, her and I had this conversation. I said, I was the most afraid of that. And she goes, oh, you should have been. She said, because people are so judgmental. And I'm like, they are, and I shouldn't say people are, but like kids especially are like, oh, I didn't like it. They don't mean to hurt your feelings. They're just being honest.
Just tell the truth.
Which I kind of wish we had more of that. If people are just like, oh, you shouldn't like it. It's fine.
We should hang out.
I know
I'm like that.
I know as adults, I'm like, we are a little more poised with being like, I hate it.
I sugarcoat it, but I'm very direct. I prefer direct myself.
Oh,
I'd rather
me too.
somebody tell me than find out later.
People tell me all the time, they're like, you're very blunt. And I'm like, and I always, my poor mother, I always blame it on her. I'm like, she's British. She passed it on to me, but I'm like, I am, and I would prefer that. Like, and I say this a lot, and we can touch base on this later too, but one of the things that was most important to me about going on the show is I wanted to be authentic. Like, I didn't want to go on there, and I'm very loud, very opinionated, and I didn't want to go on that show and be somebody that I wasn't. And that was one thing I asked production a lot. I said, I don't want you to paint me as like the small town gay, whatever. I don't want to be painted as like the former Mormon. Like, I don't want to be painted by all these things, but I did want to be painted as loud. Like, this is who I am. Like, I'm a fun, like,
fabulous jewelry.
I love really hard. I wear a lot of jewelry. But that was one thing too. I got a lot of hate online. I did. I got pretty, I would say about 80-20, a lot of love. And then I got some pretty hateful things. But a lot of it was like, well, I don't understand why you wore so much jewelry, like, for attention. And I'm like, I don't think you understand that, like, when you see me at Costco, I have 8 rings on. Like, it just, my grandma had turquoise all over her hands. My really good friend Caroline does. My sister does. Like, I just have always done it because of those people. And so, but people would be like, oh yeah, like we felt, or like, here's a good example. People will come to the bakery and be like, oh, you are not as like loud and peppy, like as what we thought you'd be on TV. And I'm like, oh, been here since 3:30 this morning. I'm like, let me like pep it up for you. But right at like the core of when the show came out, my sister would have to be like, hey, there's 8 people downstairs and they're really excited to meet you. Because it had been like a stressful day or whatever. And I would have to stop at the bottom of the stairs and be like, okay, back to the TV person that you are. Like, come on. And that's not like a fake thing, but when you have a camera pointed in your face, you're a lot more like, okay, I'm here to win $100,000, you know, and your day-to-day life is stressful. Like, it is. Yeah. But kids especially were like, oh, and one little girl like broke my heart, but she came in and she's like, oh, I was so excited to meet you. But like, you're not as like peppy and like fun as like what I like hoped you would be. And I was like, oh, I'm like, this is who I am. I'm like, you can't be on all the time, you know? Or even like at the flower shop, people will be like, you're quiet today. I'm like, I've still been talking all morning. I just haven't been like eccentric with my hands everywhere. But that was a big thing for me going on there, is I was really worried about coming across as unauthentic. Like, when I was on the Food Network, I was very quiet on that episode. I didn't say very much. And even Leslie that I was on the show with was like, it was really nice to watch you on this show just be who you were. And that was a big thing for me, is I wanted to go on there and be who I was.
Good for you.
I didn't want people to say like, oh, why were you so quiet on there? Why? Everybody knows I'm loud. Like, the phones at the shop, people are like, hey, can you like keep it down? Like, we can hear you like telling a story clear out in the front. But, you know, and I'm a dramatic, whatever. But yeah, that was important to me, to be on there and to be authentic. And I wanted people to see that you can be loud and whatever, and that's okay. And so.
Well, maybe, I don't know, I find that inspirational. I used to be a developmental therapist, and one of the things that I loved about that job was the honesty. Mm-hmm. Like, we'd go out in the community and we'd be going like thrifting or something, and I had this client, she was more like, she was like my best friend.
Yeah, totally.
And she would get in my car and be like,
oh, no. Love when they do that. Yes.
And I'm like, okay, so who's the therapist today?
It's a good reality check.
Am I the one that's supposed to be leading you? Because I think it should be the other way around.
I love it. I actually had the opportunity yesterday to go to Pocatello High School, and I'm going to slaughter her name, but I believe it's Emily Eichler, something like that. Anyway, she teaches the independent living special needs class at Pocatello High School. And they, as part of one of the projects they were working on, they were watching Blue Ribbon. And so she said, is there any way, and I had surgery on my elbow a couple months ago, so I was supposed to go in and we had to postpone, but she said, they're watching the show and they're like freaking out that you're from Idaho, but would you be willing to come in and like surprise them? And so I went in and did like a cupcake decorating demo, but it was just the honesty in that room was a very like heartwarming, like first question the kid was like, what's the most embarrassing thing that happened to you on the show? And then the one guy was like, that last guy on that episode, is that your boyfriend? And like all 30 of them were like, ooh. And I was like, this is such like a heartwarming room to be in. But I told that teacher before I left, I said, well, way to like have a classroom of people that like make you feel like a rock star. But like they were the nicest, like most, it was probably the coolest of the 2 years since this has happened that like, it just was a very, but the one guy was like, I got to tell you, this cupcake has a lot of frosting on it. I'm like, I love this. I'm like, and I did that job for 12 years and I miss that. Like I'd go to work and they'd be like, I don't like that shirt. And I'm like, good to know. I won't wear it again. I'm like, I love the honesty. I'm like, thank you so much. So, but yeah, it's.
I want to steal that question. What was the most embarrassing thing that happened
I did
to you on
fall
the show?
the one day. I did trip, and that was kind of embarrassing. Thank heavens they didn't put it on. And honestly, and no one who knows me that will be shocked by this. Both my parents are like shaking their heads when they listen to this. But I have a very loud mouth, and sometimes my mouth talks before my brain can realize what I'm saying. And there were a few times on that show that I said things, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell. But I worked with a lady on one of the episodes, and we were bickering back and forth about something, and Jason Biggs was back behind the camera and he was like, stop talking. And he was like motioning to me, like, that's enough. And I just like kept going. And she had made like a joke. She was joking, but and we were all under a lot of pressure. So everybody was like being snippy. But she had said something about like, oh, maybe you should use an emulsion blender. And I was like, yes, obviously I know that like the emulsion blender like is going to cut up the strawberries faster, but I'm trying to like whatever. And Jason was like, stop talking. Like that's enough. And so, but it was my mouth. It was part of it that I was like, I probably should have shut up in that moment. And I talk to myself a lot, like while I'm baking, and I'll be like, okay, 2 cups of sugar, whatever. And that was another thing that I was always, not that anybody saw this because they cut it out, but I was always embarrassed by, because Eric was the audio guy and he'd always like wave me down and be like, stop talking. Because my microphone was right in my apron, so I'd be like, okay, I've got to put the flour in. And I'm like, oh, and Sandra Lee's probably going to hate this. And he's like, we can all hear everything you're saying. And I'm like, no, you can't. I'm talking to myself. But yeah, when I tripped, that was really embarrassing. Luckily, I didn't drop anything. But we all, like, there were beams everywhere. I ran into, thank heavens they cut it out, ran right into the camera the one day. And I'm sure, like, that was a hot mess. But I hit the boom mic multiple times. I just am a lot in general. So my arms are all over. I'm hitting into cameras. And that is one thing, too, I tell people, like, you had 3 cameras on you at all times. And so, like, when you moved, you had to be vocal about it. Like, okay, I'm going to the sink. Okay, I'm going to the oven. Sometimes you forget and you run into this, like, and the camera team used to film The Bachelor. So they're like, we're really used to, like, chasing after people, but we're not used to just, like, standing still, like, waiting for everybody to move. And so I talk so much with my hands that I'm sure those poor camera people were like, hit our camera one more time, please. Like, we love that you're doing this every 5 seconds. But yeah, a few little embarrassing tripping. And I was telling the kids at the school, you can kind of see it. You probably can't because I have a hat on, but I went to get in on those sets. Everybody travels around in golf carts because they're quiet. Obviously can't drive a car next to a moving set, but I went to get into one of the golf carts the one day and I just cut a huge chunk out of my forehead. I had blood all over my face and all the makeup team was like, oh, how are we even going to fix this tomorrow? And they had to put like this like little like putty stuff in, and then they did the makeup. And
did that hurt?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
but the girl that did the makeup was amazing. Like Suzanne was her name. She was amazing. And the cool part is about this experience, I still talk to everybody. Still talk to the makeup artist. I still talk to all those people. But yeah, every morning she'd be like, here we go. And she'd have to like stipple all these different colors to try to blend it. And there's only one part at the semifinal that I'm like, oh, there's my like gouged forehead. But everything else, they did amazing. They covered it up very well. But yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds like it would sting right in the freshman.
It did.
Well, we already talked about your reaction when you found out you were selected. Yeah. And what's your sister's name?
Ashley.
Good job, Ashley.
Oh, she's the best.
Good job,
she's
Ashley,
yes,
for
Ashley.
telling him to go. And that's so cool that you were loyal to your customers. Like, how am I going to, I don't want to cancel all these orders.
In a lot of facets of my life, I tell people I'd be nowhere without her. And she didn't get, and I will say this specifically on here, she didn't get a lot of credit on that show. I talked about her a lot. A lot of it got cut. I wouldn't be anywhere without her in every part of my life. She's my best friend. Like, it just is. I get very emotional talking about her, but I wouldn't have had this opportunity without her. You know, she was not a baker when I left. She ran this business without me, and I didn't have a phone. So when she was making bread and it fell apart, she couldn't call me. So it was really neat, actually, because production would be like, hey, so your sister's called 14 times. So, yeah, like throughout the day, because she'd be like, oh, maybe he's on break or whatever. And I'd call her and I would have like 30 seconds to be like, okay, if the bread's not working, you need to do this and you need to do this. And I will shout them all out again. All of my wholesale people, I would tell her, call Deidre at Idaho Coffee Company and say, nobody knew that I was gone. I couldn't tell anybody. So I told everybody I was house sitting for a friend in California. Thank you to everybody that was just supportive of that. But I said every single person is so supportive of us. So call Angela at Mocha Madness, call Emma at Glean, call Lindy at the Palette and say, hey, the cake didn't work. I'll have it there tomorrow. And then I would lay in bed at night and find these YouTube videos of like all these people, like Sandra Lee, anybody that would be making like lemon poppy seed bread. And I'd send it to Ashley and be like, try it this way. Like, best of luck tomorrow. I'm so sorry. I have to be back at set at 5 a.m. And it was, 2:30 in the morning and I'm still up. Like, how do I help her? And I'd call her and I'd cry. She'd cry. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, Ron went home today and I was devastated. And she's like, focus. I can't get the muffins to work. But I'm very thankful for her.
I want to meet Ashley.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah, I tell people, and we've made this joke our whole life, she's the female version of me. So I'm like, if you think I'm a lot, she's just me, but a girl.
I love that.
So,
I don't think you're a lot.
We're the two loudest
I feel like
of
we'd
the
get along
Chandlers.
great.
Yeah, she's the best. So yeah, I'm very lucky to have her.
Well, so this was something I was actually kind of curious about.
Sure.
We've talked about a little bit of this, but what was the most intense or challenging moment during the competition for you?
It sounds like cliche and that I'm trying to be like fruity about it, but one of the hardest parts was people leaving. I think for me is I got really close with all 9 of those bakers. And you lived in a trailer with those people for 12 hours every day. Like they yelled cut, you went and sat in a trailer. I mean, I know things probably about those people's spouses that they don't even know. Like, it just is that I know things about those kids, like, especially.
We won't talk about
totally.
that.
But it's even like Felicia and I, we call each other about everything. Like, I mean, I know things about Felicia's children before she tells things to her kids. So, it's just like which I'm thankful for that. Like, she's such a dear friend of mine.
So you just created a strong bond.
And I tell people, I call it trauma bonding. Because you were put in a traumatic situation, but probably the hardest, I think, were probably the days that things were emotional based. So like the day I made that cheesecake, thank heavens I won that round. But like the day I made that cheesecake, I call her my mother-in-law, we're not married, but my partner's mom, Eunice, it's a cheesecake recipe that she's had for years. So I made it for her. I did a floral she embroiders. So I did the embroidery because of her. My mom loves that cheesecake. And I did the flowers because of LD. And so those days were emotionally the hardest because I thought, if you flop on this, it's Food Network again. It's about everybody you care about and things like that. But the semifinal was really hard. That anybody who was on that show is rolling their eyes at me making that comment because I ended up winning Fair Favorite that day and I didn't have to do the second bake. But going into that, if you won the Fair Favorite thing, you automatically had a place in the finale. So that probably was the scariest because I thought, if you don't make it today, you're toast. And my goal was to make it to the end, obviously. If win or lose, it's a long time to be away from your life and your job to not go home with any money or this 75-foot ribbon. But yeah, the cheesecake round was probably one of the harder ones. Oh, I guess what I should say, I hate to make pie more than anything in the whole world. It's my least favorite bake. It terrifies me. And we did have a pie round. And that I should probably revert all that and say the pie was the hardest round for me. And Ron, who was on the show, who is a dear friend of mine, he is a pie master. He's won like national pie competitions, all these things. He's a pie judge all over the world, but all of the United States, I should say. He'll listen to this and be like, it's not the world, but he's the cutest.
But you should be.
Yes, I get to go see him in March. So excited. But
where is he at?
He's in Albuquerque. And I was just there in last August with him, October. And we went to the Hot Air Balloon Festival with like 7 of us from the show. And like people, as we were walking, were like, oh my gosh, you guys were on that show, which I loved. Oh. So that was amazing. But yeah, I had him taste my pie. He got eliminated the day before, but he was still like on production. And so I said, can you just taste this? And he's like, do this and this and this and this. And I do talk about that on that episode that I said, if I didn't have Ron, I probably wouldn't have made it. And I got second place that day, but I'm the only contestant on that show that got a ribbon every single episode. And so that was, a privilege to have done that. But yeah, that pie, and they did a blind judging that day on that episode for people that haven't seen it. So we didn't know how it was judged. So they got in and they said, I made a pumpkin praline pie. And they said, the pumpkin pralines is second place and, now tell us who it is. And as soon as she said, I just wanted first, second, or third, because that round, if you weren't first, second, or third, you were the bottom two. And I thought, if I'm the bottom two, they're going to send me home. Like, that's just what I told myself. So when they said second place, I obviously was very thankful for that. But yeah, pie's a tough, and we didn't bake in glass pans. So for pie bakers or people who don't know how to bake pie, if you don't bake it in a glass pan, you can't see the bottom to see if it's done. So where these were in like ceramic tin things, we couldn't see if the bottom was finished. So it was a scary bake that day. But like Eileen that was on there, she's an amazing baker. And so like her pie, she knew it was done. Felicia makes pie all the time. She knew it was done. Kat and I, we were brand new to pie. So we were like, I don't know if it's finished or not. So it was a frightening, that was probably
new and got second place.
The scary day. Yeah, thank heavens.
Yes.
Ron, I tell everybody it's because of Ron. He helped me out. So, but.
Well, my next question is, was there a bake that you were especially proud of, even if it was stressful?
Yeah, probably the last one. I would say it was the most proud of. The croissants didn't turn out exactly. They were a little bit gummy at the bottom, which happens a lot. But looking at that, they called it a bakescape, which you had to do a past, present, and future bake. So I did cupcakes as my past because that's kind of how I started. And I make something at the bakery that's called a boomerang. And it's a butter croissant filled with some type of a pastry cream and dipped in a donut glaze. So the ones I did on the show were passion fruit. So I did that as my present. And then my partner, and I will clarify this here as well for all local people listening, I did not take over the flower shop. A lot of people think that I did based off the way they like phrased it on the show. But my partner, Josh, will take over the flower shop when LD does retire. LD is still there. LD is alive and well. But when he does retire, Josh will take it over. So I incorporated flowers onto the cake that I did to kind of say, moving into the future, the florals in the bakery and everything will go together. And I didn't know Josh was coming to that finale. And so when they flew all of them out, it was neat to have him there just because it tied in, that story and all of that. But yeah, at the end, I was the proudest probably sitting there. And like I said, Felicia is a dear friend of mine. And so I got to sit next to her, which I was very thankful for. But looking at everybody's bakes that day, like they were all incredible. But like I knew looking up there that I personally was the proudest of everything that I had made. It's how the cake turned out. It's how, I'd made French macarons. They had turned out, like all of that. And so I just I tell people, and a lot of people are like, no, it's because you're talented. But in my mind, I got very lucky that day. And because anybody who bakes, anybody who's made a sugar cookie, it doesn't always work out. Like, it's not always amazing. The Food Network is a prime example. Like, I knew what I was doing, but like having a 3-tiered cake that was straight, like it wasn't leaning, the boomerangs turned out other than the gummy layer, which it is what it is. And then the cupcakes all turned out the way I wanted them to. And looking at that, I'm like, oh, and it actually was cool. About 6 months ago, it got posted on Marie Claire, that picture of like the finale thing. And I'm like, it's a pretty bizarre thing to have somebody tag you and be like, hey, by the way, your cake's in Marie Claire. Like, that's a pretty wild. So
surreal.
Yeah. So, but that moment for sure. And like I had mentioned this earlier when we were talking, but when they sliced that carrot cake and pulled it out, I thought, okay, you maybe have an okay chance of winning this, but you still didn't know. Like on the round that I won that cheesecake thing, she cried when she was eating it and like all this, whatever. It was very nice, but I still thought I'll probably get second. Like, and all the other bakers that day were like, you're an idiot. We all made a joke that we all said winner, winner, chicken dinner. And like, we would do like a little chicken dance every time somebody would win. And as they were announcing the winner, Ron looked over and he was like, made these like little chicken arms. And I was like, I'm not going to win. Like, but like I said before, like it's a mental game. So like, you just never know, if you're going to win or not. But yeah, that finale probably is I'm the most proud of.
Yeah, that's actually my next question about winning the title. So what went through your mind when you heard your name announced as the winner?
Nothing. I was completely blank, to tell you the honest truth. And in fact, they kind of paused.
Stunned.
Because there was like confetti cannons and balloons and all this stuff. And they kind of paused like, can you give us some sort of a reaction, please? And I will say, and again, I hate making comments like this because it makes it sound like I'm trying to be this like humble whatever, and I'm not trying to be that. I feel like that's kind of just how I am. But
I think this is an Idahoan thing.
Yeah, totally.
Every person that comes on the podcast says exactly what you just said, and we talk about imposter syndrome.
But I think my biggest thing was, and Felicia and I, our hotel was right next to a Tim Hortons, so we went to Tim Hortons the next day, and that's where I had to like say goodbye to her. We weren't allowed to talk in between the show coming out. So for 9 months, I didn't get to talk to any of the bakers, which was very hard. But I remember telling her that day, I said, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm stoked that I won, obviously. I said, but I've lost on TV before, and I know what that feels like. I said, and when she called my name, like my heart broke for you. I said, because it was her and I, like they had given Eileen third place. And so I said, yeah, I was excited to win, but like my biggest goal was obviously not to be like, ha, like, gotcha, like whatever. But like she handed it to me and I'm like, well, I don't want her to be sad because I've been sad on before or like on TV before and like lost. And so like, I didn't want to do that, but I also wanted to be excited. My partner was there. Her husband was there, so it was just like, I didn't want it to be like a whatever, but then I did have to remind myself, like, somebody had to win this show. Like, I need to be excited. And I remember, I call it my Rocky moment, which is so stupid, but I remember I like held the ribbon in the air and I remember being like, you're such an idiot. What are you doing? But in the moment you do things and I'm like, and there's a photo of it that Netflix has posted a couple of times and I'm like, take that down with me with this like 7-foot ribbon in the air. And Felicia's like cackling in the picture because she probably was like, you idiot, what are you doing? But all those like 80 fairgoers were there and they were all freaking out. But yeah, I remember when she came walking directly towards both of us. And for the people that are just listening to this and not watching this ribbons is massive. It's from the Kentucky Derby. This is what they win when they win the Kentucky Derby. Same lady. So it's a massive, like 5.5-foot ribbon. But she walked towards both of us and she veered and handed it to me. And I remember my first instinct was just to cover my face because I was like, not because I was crying, but I was just like, for lack of a better term, excuse my language here, but I was like, oh shit, now what? Now I don't really know what to do. Because I'm like, do I cry? Do I laugh? Do I hug Josh first? Do I hug Felicia? Do I hug Sandra Lee? All of that floods. It's one of those moments like before you get in a car accident where everybody's like, I thought 800 things in 4 seconds. Like you really do. But when Felicia hugged me, I remember her saying like, it's fine. Like, I'm so proud of you. Like, this is amazing, whatever. And I'll never forget when she said my name, I heard Felicia say, oh my gosh, Nathan. And like, it's really neat. It's probably one of my favorite things that happened on that show, but we were linked arms, we were waiting, and they made us wait so long. Like, it was probably 30 minutes that they were up there like, the winner is, okay, let's do that again. The winner of the blue ribbon. Okay, let's do it one more time. And finally, Felicia and I were like, just tell us who the winner is, and then we'll redo this. Like, you're driving me crazy. But they knew we were going to cry. It was going to be whatever. But I remember she said to me, I wouldn't want to be up here with anybody else. Like, I wanted this to be you and me, whoever it is. I'm so happy for both of us. And that was a reassuring because, like, I wanted it to be me. Like, let's not pretend. Like, I went there to win, obviously. But I never think it was going to be me. So then when she handed it to me, it is that 400 things in 5 seconds that you're like, well, now I don't know what to do but to be excited. And my partner was very nice. But, like, when I hugged him, he's like, I knew it was going to be you. And I said, that's very kind, but you didn't, actually. Like, it could have been her. Like, her bakes were incredible that day, too. But they yelled cut. And I remember it was the makeup lady came over, and she was like, just breathe for a second. She's like, you did it. You won. She goes, but now it's done. And this was a very neat thing that she said, and I'm very grateful for this. But she said, you just need to take all this in for a minute. She goes, because tomorrow morning, this is done. She goes, so take in that balloons are being thrown at you and confetti's everywhere. She goes, because it's over tomorrow. And I will say it was so heartbreaking. The next day I came back to do my final interview. Half the barn was empty. Like, everything was gone. Sandra Lee was gone. Like, all of this, like, the production was over. And here I am, like, with this ribbon in my bag. And I'm like, oh, now this is, like, in my mind, I'm like, this is fake now for 9 months. Because it's like, now I can't tell anybody. This lived in a tote box underneath my guest bedroom bed downstairs because no one could know that I had it. Like, my parents knew, obviously. And that is to go, and maybe you'll ask me this in a minute, so I'm jumping ahead. But probably my favorite thing about that was, obviously, you could tell your family, just your direct family, but I wanted to poise it in a way that I didn't just tell them. So I set my phone up against my water bottle and I went in the trailer by myself. And it was like 2:30 in the morning when I called. But of course, my family's all like sitting there. And we were a couple hours ahead where we were. And so I called and I had the ribbon on my lap. And I was like, hey. And my sister's face just like, and I FaceTimed her. It just like immediately dropped. And I was like, hey, I'm like, now, obviously you guys know that Josh is here. Like, and I like kind of started getting emotional and I was like, it just was pretty crazy. I'm like, it didn't go the way that I wanted it to, but like, and my mom just like had a hold of her chest and I was like, I'm like, but they like gave me, and I like stood up and I was like, we got first place. And it was so cool how it happened because my dad walked in from work as my mom is the cutest. My mom's like 5 feet tall. She's jumping up and down on the couch. My sister's sobbing. My dad walked in the door and he's like, what's going on? And then I called my oldest sister, Stacy. I FaceTimed her and I said, hey, I didn't win, but you know, it was really cool. And she started crying immediately. And she's like, you didn't? She's like, you did so amazing. We're so proud of you. And I was like, just kidding, here it is. And so that was kind of a neat to
she
be
was
able
like prepared
to be,
with her.
and they totally were.
Speech.
Totally. It's like, I tell people all the time, there's like that little Facebook meme or whatever where that girl buys 2 congratulations cookies for her husband that took like the bar exam. And the one says like, screw the bar, who wanted to go to law school anyway. And then the other one says like, congratulations, we're so proud of you, we love you. And she gives him the wrong cookie. And he's like, screw the bar. And he's like, I passed. And she's like, wrong cookie. I'm like, in situations like this, you have to be prepared for both, which my parents have said, like, we were fully ready to be like, we're so proud of you. It's amazing. Don't feel bad that you didn't win. Like, but you know, and having Josh there, like that was neat to be able to share that with him and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty wild.
So it sounds like, well, my next question is, has it sunk in that you are a Netflix baking champion?
You know, it did, I will say. So the show's been out for a little over a year and a half. It came out in August of last year. And there were moments that it did that I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, and I still don't know who it is. So thank you to whoever local Pocatello person did this with billboards. But they did a big billboard that said, congratulations, Nathan Chandler, we want cheesecake. And we had a bunch of people that came into the bakery and they were like, hey, like, what's the cheesecake thing? Like, we saw your billboard. And I'm like, you saw my billboard? I'm like, I didn't do a billboard. So I called my friend Karen, who I know does like advertising. And I said, did you do a billboard? And she's like, no, what are you talking about? And I'm like, don't lie to me, Karen. And she's like, I really didn't. So then I called my friend Rose, who's like my Pocatello mom. I said, did you do a billboard? And she's like, no, honey, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what's going on? So then we drove downtown and I'm like, oh my gosh, there is my name and all this stuff on this billboard. And it was little moments like that. The first time I went to Costco, right after the show came out, there was this kid that was like, that's the Netflix guy, which is terrifying, by the way, in the middle of Costco at 5 p.m. when it's packed. And all these people like turn and look and I'm like pulling my hat down. I'm like, and I'm very proud to have been on there, but it was a pretty shocking. But there were a few moments that I was like, oh, this is like, we ended up going out of town one weekend because I was like, this is becoming a lot. Like, we were at the bakery from like 3 a.m. to 10 p.m. every night just because we were selling out in like 40 minutes every day. It was crazy. And we were at the Los Angeles airport and a family came up and she's like, hi, I'm so sorry, but my daughter loved you on the blue ribbon. Like, can we get a picture? And I was like, oh my gosh, is this what this is? I'm like, is this what you famous people go through? Because, oh, vomit. I'm like, I don't know how you guys handle this. And my partner said, as we were getting on the plane, he said, this is so bizarre. And it's even crazier for him because he was on there. So people were like, you were on there too. And I'm like, now you know what it's like. But like walking into Pokey High School yesterday and having all those kids freak out, I'm like, there are little moments that I'm like, I have to remind myself, and I try to be very humble. Like, it's just, I don't like super cocky people. Like, it's just not my whatever. But I try very hard to be like, you do need to remember that, like, this is a big deal. Like, you want a television show that's, and I will say the thing that was the most like eye-opening is Netflix sent us like a little document in an email that was like, hey, bakers, that's what they all call us. And so they're like, hey, bakers, the show comes out today. We just wanted to send you like a little statistic thing. I can never say that word, of like, this many millions and millions and millions of people have Netflix accounts. And this many people like will view the show in the first like 3 days that it's out. That makes you want to vomit. Just because, and I will say, and I tell people it's very cool, but it was very alarming. We went downstairs. The show had been out for like a week. Bridgerton had just come out. And then that You show with Penn Badgley had just come out. And it was the marquee images on Netflix, which is still like such, makes me want to throw up to say that. But like, it was Bridgerton, like the wicked guy, like, you know, whatever his name is, Jonathan Bailey. I pretend like I don't know. Come on. Like Jonathan Bailey's face goes by, Penn Badgley's face goes by, and then it's me with a cake, like with our marquee thing. And I'm like,
I've seen the picture where you're like yeah, this, like that typing. One. Yeah.
And I didn't even know that they took that picture. So I'm like, that's very nice that they like have my giant nose like all over Netflix. That's my like bald head, you know, but it is. And still to this day, we'll be scrolling and it'll be like, maybe you'd like this show. And it's like the Great American State Fair. And then all of a sudden it's my face. And I'm like, this is so frightening. Or you get like, I just got a message like 2 days ago from a girl in Indonesia. And she's like, I just watched Blue Ribbon. I loved it so much. You're so talented. And I'm like, you're in Indonesia. I'm like, this is wild. In Brazil, I get all the time, like, we love you in Brazil. And I'm like, how do you know me in Brazil? Like, this is crazy. But Felicia and I talk all the time. Kat, especially because she's ethnic. And so she gets a lot of people that are like, thank you for using like ouzo and like all of those things on the show. And she baked with, you know, all these incredible ingredients. But the love that we've gotten from people that are like, oh my gosh, I live in Jakarta. Like, I've been watching you for, 3 months. My kids fall asleep to the show every night. And Felicia will send me these like little ribbons that people have made for me. And like all the kids at Pokey yesterday had asked me like, is Kat so nice? And so it is kind of an eye-opening thing sometimes. And I'm like, oh, this was a big deal. Like and you dumb it down, whatever that phrase is, in your mind, because to me, I'm a baker from Pocatello. Like it's not and I'm thankful for that, but I'm just a guy from a small town. Like it's wild that like I'm on a podcast.
It's so
like it's
cool.
crazy to me.
It's so cool.
And my mom said to me the one time, she's like, I think you have to stop at some point, like pretending this isn't a big deal. She's like, you want a TV show. Not a lot of people have that opportunity to say that. And I've been on TV twice. And so that's not a lot of people have that opportunity either. So I always, it's the number one thing I try to tell people. I never want to come across as ungrateful. It just is very overwhelming. It really is. And so like, I try to never come across as like, oh, this is dumb, like whatever. I'm so thankful for the opportunity. It just is a lot. So,
yeah.
But yeah,
way
it's
to
amazing.
Represent Pocatello.
Well, we tried.
I love it. So I have some questions about behind the scenes.
Sure, totally.
Were there any funny or unexpected moments that didn't make it to TV?
Oh, so many. And I tell people,
give me a funny one.
I wish that show could have just made 3 more episodes of just everything that Jason Biggs did. But one of my
the bloopers.
Oh yeah, or even just he was so good at making all of us laugh, especially in moments where like something was going on, and he always would. And I think he would even agree that he did stuff like this on purpose. But like, he'd be like, let's say like a bake wasn't going good, and he'd be like, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's like $100,000 on the line, but like, who cares? Like, it's not that much money. Like, it's not like you're just going home. But he was very good at but he came and hugged all of us every day, like after we wrapped. And like, Sandra Lee had to be very careful because she was the host and like the main judge. So she couldn't be like, hey, you did great today, kind of thing. But there was one day that everybody, it was just very tense. I don't even remember what was happening, but Jason was like, okay, bakers, I love you guys. Like, I'm going to see you. And they were filming. So they were like, I'm going to see you in a little bit. And he's an actor, obviously. He's very, very well trained to do these type of moments. But they had these big wooden beams that went across. Well, we all thought that he hit it. And well, what he had done is as he had walked, he had either slapped it or kicked it or whatever, but he fell, like full body slammed on the floor and was like, oh my gosh. All of us like came around and we were like, oh my gosh, Jason. He like started cackling and he's like, oh man, amateurs. He's like I actually hit my head. And then they showed us like the thing of him like slapping it as he hit it to like make us think he had hit it. And I was like, it's little things like that I wish that people could have seen, that he just was so funny. And just like little things like he'd slip, or he was making fun of me because I was they cut this out, but we had to throw this little pig. If you ever come to the bakery, the little pig is at the bakery. They let me keep it, but I don't know how I made that happen. But we had to throw it through. It was like a midway game. We had to throw it through and like knock down things. And he was making fun of me that I couldn't get it through. And then coincidentally enough, when I won the semifinal round, we played like a beanbag toss and he didn't make it through. And then I got to make fun of him. And so it just was a lot of like, I'm like, oh, all of like the little things that like got cut. But yeah, it was just like a lot of funny, like he made a lot of sexual innuendos for people who have seen American Pie. I won't go into the reference of what it is. But
did anybody give him crap during the pie
so
episode?
It's funny.
Like, keep Jason away from the pies.
Every single time.
Yes.
And he would, like I said, I'll keep it
I'll
keep it appropriate on this podcast.
That's okay. It's okay.
But he would make little comments about like, oh, that's a beautiful pie. And I'd be like, please stop talking about my pie. But he actually contractually was not allowed to say American Pie because of the show. So he had to say like, the Great American Pie, or we love American Pie.
What's your favorite flavor of pie, Jason?
And we hammered him every day. And we'd be like, I'm making cherry pie later, Jason. And he'd be like, don't you tempt me with a good time.
I'm not cutting this.
Like I said, I won't say the exact quote he says on the show, but for all of you who know, you know what he's saying. But he would come up behind you while you were baking and he would like lean in and he'd be like, is that cherry pie? And then he would like walk away. And I tell people, I've met a couple of famous people over the years and just little things. He's the most genuine. He FaceTimed his wife, Jenna, every night. And he was like, Jenna, these are the bakers. And we'd be like, hi. We didn't know her. So we were like, hi, Jenna. Like I remember when people got eliminated, he would get emotional and like he would, I don't even know. He's great. And my partner, when he met him, I remember we went to dinner and Josh said, he's like, oh my gosh, Jason Biggs is so nice. And that is one cool thing, that winning this, the money, everything was amazing. But I'm like, how many people get to say like, oh, I spent 30 days with Jason Biggs, like on for lack of a better term, a movie set. Like, it's very cool to be like, yeah, I filmed with a big movie star for 30 days. Like, I watched him come in out of hair and makeup with his like poofy hair. And then I actually got to have my hair cut by his hairdresser that's done his hair for a million years. And like watching Sandra Lee like get her makeup done like before she went on set, like it just was a very like little, and that's what I tell everybody, like what you saw was cool. It's not what happened. And that's, I was telling the high school students yesterday, I said, I'm bad at math. I said, but if you think there was 3 cameras on every baker every day for 30 days, and you saw 8 45-minute episodes. And I'm like, so if you just think in your mind, and the one little girl was so cute. She was like, that's a lot. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot you didn't see. And even like Josh, like when he watches it, my partner, he'll be like, oh, they cut that out. And I'm like, yeah, my whole life. I'm like, the whole 30 days that we were there. But another thing, and then we can move on. They call it being on hard ice when you're not allowed to talk. Well, we all thought we were being so secretive because your microphones were in your aprons. So we would, I'll try not to hit this one too. We would like cover our aprons and like be like, so did you see what she said about like whatever? Or, like, I wonder why she chose like that pink frosting. They let us do it for like 20 out of the 30 days before finally the sound guy was like, hey, so by the way, when you guys do this, we fully can hear you. And we were like, what? And he's like, every single word. And I would like say to Felicia, I'd be like, you did a really good job. Like, I'm really proud of you. I loved your cake. And she'd be like, thank you so much. I loved it too. And he'd always be like, I can hear you. Because we were not supposed to be talking. Like Sandra Lee would be like filming like a talking point. And we'd be like, love her dress. Like, or we would be like, oh, I don't like that dress as much. Or like whatever. And Eric was like, stop. They're going to use all of that. And she wears, which I wear very eccentric things as well, but she wore very eccentric clothes, which she knows. Her and I had that conversation, but she had this big, like, for people who don't know what a squash blossom is, it's this massive turquoise necklace. She came in the one day and I was like, girl, how are you doing judging like a baking competition in a squash blossom? I'm like, what's happening? So it was a lot of like, I said to Felicia the one day, I'm like, why would you wear a squash blossom to like judge this thing? And Felicia's like, they can hear us. I'm like, no, they can't. We're talking so quiet. And I talk like I talk through a megaphone on a normal basis. So my whispering is just like most people's normal decibels. So, but it was just a lot of things like that I'm like, oh, I wish people could have seen like the funny, like little parts of like things that we did. But yeah, there was a lot that was filmed that got cut.
Maybe they should release a bloopers reel.
They should. Oh, and like Jason broke up like a massive pumpkin one time with a sledgehammer, like for a bit that they were doing. That didn't make it in. He tried to break a piñata that didn't end up breaking. And I'm like, all of those things would have been so funny, like to put in. But yeah, he's the best. So
yeah, I honestly, I don't know if I would have been more like starstruck over him or Sandra Lee.
You know, it was pretty crazy just because like walking in, I was like, oh my gosh, if he's the host, I don't even want to know who the judges are. And I had heard of Brian Ford. Who was the one judge, and then Bill Yossis, I had never heard of him before, but he was a White House pastry chef for years. So I was like, I was the most afraid to be judged by Bill because Bill's a White House pastry chef. Like, he obviously knows what he's doing. And like Sandra Lee, she's already intimidating. Like, I didn't know Brian, and he was a bread guy. So I wasn't as scared when Brian like judged my cake, because I was like, oh, you're like a bread. The day I made croissants, horrified the whole time, because I knew he would be the most judgmental. But you're filming a TV show. So like they are, they have to be biting and things like that. And then when it's cut, they all were very complimentary. Like, hey, that was great. You did a nice job. Like, and if you flopped, they were like, the cake wasn't great. Like, it's okay. Like, and not all 10 of us have the same perspective. Like, I've talked to all 10 or all 9 of the other bakers over the years. And a lot of them are, oh, I didn't feel like it went that way. Or I didn't feel, so everybody has a different take on it. I'm obviously winning helps that, but I'm very thankful I was able to leave with like a positive kind of outlook on the whole thing.
Yeah. But, yeah. Well, one thing that I would like maybe for inspiration for the listeners is, what advice would you give to aspiring bakers that are watching the show from home?
It's a lot of work. I'll say that. Buy a really expensive dishwasher. That's the 2 things that I'll say. I think I can never remember what this like little quote is that people say, but it sounds very like cheesy of me to say, but it isn't. I can't remember what it is, but like, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey, I think is what people say. But it really is like, you've got to flop a million times. And everybody says this, like book writers, authors, or that's the same thing. Like authors, movie stars, people, everybody that do any type of a job, dentists, whoever, things are not going to go amazing at first. So like, I look back at cookies that I literally sold to like local businesses here. And I'm like, those are a disaster. Like, that is horrifying that I took your money for those. But had you not have taken my money then, or I hadn't taken your money then, and like you given me business then, I would be nowhere where I am today. And like bakers will come in, or people that are like, oh, like I make cheesecake from home. And I'm like, well, don't stop. Cause like it's and I try to be very honest with people, because like I think sometimes when you're looking for advice in like the business world and people are like, it's amazing. I'm like, it isn't. And I've heard this on your podcast too before. And like Jen was on here from the Yellowstone. Like, it's hard. Like, I think everybody thinks it's like, fruitcake and whatever. Like, it isn't. Like, it's a tough gig to own a business in general. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think working through, like, the Food Network situation taught me a lot about like working through like, oh, I didn't feel like I was good enough. I didn't like whatever. But I think you're not going to be amazing every single time you do stuff. Like, there still are days that I make wedding cakes even, and that's what I specialize in. But like, I'll look at it and be like, this is not my best wedding cake, or like, this one doesn't look the best, or I don't love the piping the most. And other people come in and be like, this is amazing. And one thing that I try, and humble probably wouldn't be the word that I use, but I try to remain in like a world of like, your next cake could still be better. So, and Sandra Lee said that on the show a lot, like, you're only as good as your last bake. And it is true, because like, it could be amazing today and I could flop tomorrow, and so and when you're, especially in like the job I have now, like when you're making wedding cakes and stuff, you have one shot. Like, you have one shot to be in people's pictures forever. So it's like, it's an intimidating thing, but like, not giving up, I think, is a big thing, because it's easy to do. Like, I've had a lot of jobs. I've done a lot of different things, and it's very easy to be like, oh, like, hair was fun, but like, it wasn't for me. Like, I didn't give up on that job. It just wasn't for me. Like, and that's another thing I think that is good for people to remember. Like, you don't have to do the same thing forever. Yeah. Like, I did hair for 5 years. It wasn't my thing. So I moved on to baking, and now I love that. Now I help part-time at the flower shop. I love that too. So like, not, you hear these people that are like, I've been a CPA for 40 years and I've hated it for 38 of the 40 years. And I'm like, girl, go do something else.
Why?
Like, find a new job that you love. Like, life is so short to just be like, oh, I did this for forever. But yeah, I do tell people, like, I always make the joke, like, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of dishes. Like, but yeah, I mean, baking's amazing. And we have a real lack of different types of bakers in this town. Like, there's another local business. I believe it's called Creana's LLCs.
Yeah.
But
they just opened it.
Yes, in Glean. Mm-hmm. And we bake for Glean, and like Melted Magic is in there. And I think it's called
Yomi.
Yeah. And like the Sushi Express. We just ate there for the first time the other day. It's delicious.
What'd you get?
I got I'm not a very explorative eater. So I got the hibachi chicken, but my partner got the sushi, and everything was amazing.
Steak
and they were
scallops.
So nice. Oh, I'll have to try that.
That's my favorite.
The scallops,
Do you like
the scallops I couldn't handle, but the steak I would love.
But it's good.
But like, I tell people, even like, just in there is a great example that I'm like, if you don't explore places like downtown, like you have Off the Rails, then you have that Dude's Public Marketplace, which is like 5 different places in there. All of them are amazing. And all those business owners are great. But back to like, I'm grateful for people like Creana's coming in, because you're not getting an African meat pie anywhere else here in this town. And also, there's not a lot of gluten-free chocolate chip cookie options. So the fact that those are the 2 things she's known by, everybody, and people do this a lot, they'll come into the bakery and be like, oh, another bakery is opening. And I'm like, amazing. This is great. Yes. Because I can't do 85 weddings a year. So someone else needs to. So everybody listening at home, start making wedding cakes, because I can't do them all. But like, people will say all the time, like when Round River Baking opened up the street from us, people were like, oh, there's another bakery downtown. And I'm like, amazing. He makes sourdough. We don't make sourdough. This is great. Like, and I tell people all the time, like, go to Matt, go to his bakery, buy his bread. Like, this is great. Or like the Woodland, it's not Woodland. She makes caramel apples.
Woodland Orchard.
It is Woodland. Thank you. I tell people all the time, like, this is amazing. I love that she does that, because we don't make caramel apples. And like, there's room for everybody. I don't make cinnamon rolls. Go to Geraldine's. Like, we're all, Camille's crepes, things like that. Like, everybody does their own thing here. Like, not a lot of people make, like, there's a couple people that make French macarons and stuff like that. Nobody else is doing like croissants and like cakes and things like that. Like, there are a couple, like Nydia's Creations is open in Chubbuck out by Smith's. She does a great job. And so I'm thankful for other people coming to town that do that. But yeah, it's been nice to kind of see that people are doing businesses like that, because it is hard. It's an
ecosystem. I say this all the time, because I've had a retail shop here in town for 11 years.
Yeah.
And I've been all over the place. I went from the mall, I was on Alameda, and then to historic downtown. Yeah. And honestly, it's an ecosystem. So I would team up with other shop owners like Kanda. Mm-hmm. I love Vein and Vintage. I love Wisteria Sage. That's one of my very favorites. Christina's awesome. So I got to know everybody, and I was like, hey, and we would send people to each other. Like,
and you have to, because you can't.
Do you have creepy dolls? Because I don't have any creepy dolls.
Love that.
Yeah.
But also, like, no matter, like, let's say I am the only person who makes cupcakes. I'm not, but let's say I was. I can't take every order in town. And as much as I love our local grocery stores, I would way rather send somebody to a local person. So I tell bakers all the time, if you have a business card, please drop it off. Like, we don't make cake pops. I hate them. Congratulations to everybody who loves to make a cake pop. I refuse because I think they're so tedious. But we need that. Like, people want to order cake pops. I don't do like fancy decorated Rice Krispie treats. If you do, please bring me your business card. And I always think, and this is just my own personal opinion, but I'm like, if you can't be a local business owner who's okay with supporting other local businesses, you shouldn't have a business, because you can't do it all by yourself. Like, you have to be able to support other people by supporting yourself. So it's just like, people are always surprised. They're like, you want us to bring in business cards? I'm like, yes, because like, we can all have a business here. Like, we don't need to just be one person that does things. And so, but yeah, to that question, like, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. I mean, I love this job, and it's a nice creative outlet to have, and that's, like you said a minute ago, teaming up with businesses. Like, it's why I opened inside of the flower shop, because flowers and baked goods go hand in hand. Valentine's Day we did together for years. And now it just is, I wouldn't be where I am business-wise if I wasn't inside of LD's. Like, I couldn't go and make a $4,500 rent payment somewhere in some, taking over an establishment. So like, I have the ability to be in there. It's financially, a good idea. But I look at somewhere like Dude's Public Marketplace and like the Old Town shops and like things like that. Like, you have the ability to rent out a space that isn't super expensive. And like, that's convenient for wanting to own a business. So
I know we have that's another thing I always tell people, and they're like, there's nowhere to shop. And I'm like, we do have a little bit of a shopping issue, and we do have a retail issue.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's hard to have retail.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Here. Yeah. And I tried so hard, but I finally got to the point of like, I'm doing better with my, other business.
And every local business owner in this town could say this, but like, the support ebbs and flows sometimes. And you have to realize that like for us, January is our worst month. So we take 2 weeks off in January and we travel and we do things like that, because no one's missing us in January. Like, it's a slow month. It's post-Christmas, things like that. But February hits and we're slammed again. And so that's one thing I tell like at-home bakers, local businesses, like bakers, things like that I say, like, there are going to be weeks and months of the year that are going to be horrible for you. And that isn't like customers' fault. Like, it's just how the world works. Like, we're in a weird economy situation right now. So like, I realize that I have the kind of job that I make luxury products, as far as like, luxury is not the word. Whatever that word is, stuff that you don't need. Maybe luxury is the word, but it's like, you don't need to eat a croissant.
I like the word bougie.
Bougie. Let's use bougie. Bougie. But like, you're making...
Is it a real word? I don't know.
Oh, I love it. I think it's great. I'm sure fergalicious is in the dictionary, so I'm sure bougie's got to be at this point. But,
I'm gonna look it
like,
up.
You don't have to buy a cupcake. Like, that's not a necessity. Maybe that's what I should say. I don't make necessity items.
Yeah.
So I like the word luxury because it makes me feel fancy. Bougie, one might say. But it is, LD and I have this conversation a lot, that like, flowers are a luxury, that you're coming in and buying a $100 arrangement to put on your desk at work. Like, not everybody's doing that. So the fact that we're busy in the economy that we're in, so thankful for. But you do have to be prepared that in months like January, October's a bad month for us. August is, because everybody's going back to school. Like, you just have to financially prepare. And that is probably another big piece of advice I tell people, like, financially prepare yourself. Put some money in the bank. Don't just spend all your money. Like, it sounds very like, put your money in the piggy bank of me. But like, there's going to be the months where it's going to be hard to pay your bills because things are not busy. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have 14 weddings in the same weekend and you're going to want to die. So it's like, you have to ebb and flow into like, it's going to be slow and you're going to send your workers home and it's going to be whatever. And then all of a sudden, your sister's spending the night at your house for 4 days because you've got to be at the bakery till midnight every night, So it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. I mean, I enjoy doing it.
It is. Sure. So what would you say to someone who is scared to maybe put themselves out there?
I think the biggest thing is you're probably not doing what everybody else is doing. So it's frightening to put yourself out there. But like, I remember when I started with the cupcakes, obviously, but then I went to like royal icing decorated sugar cookies. And I remember thinking like, people are not going to buy these. Like, it's a firm set icing. So you're not eating like a fluffy grandma sugar cookie. And I remember thinking like, no one's going to want these. Like, and it blew up because nobody else was doing that. Like, we sell cannolis, Italian cannolis. You can get an Italian cannoli at a Cafe Toscano, but that's like a dinner place. You're not going there like, maybe, I don't know their hours, so maybe you are going there at 8 a.m. But there's nowhere else in town that you're going and getting a cannoli. When I very first started making those, I was like, no one's going to buy these. But I don't have a fryer in my building because I can't like put the port through the ceiling and stuff. So like, we buy our cannoli shells from a company in San Francisco that makes them for us. And I I remember when I bought the box, I was like, okay, there's 144 cannoli shells in here. And I'm like, and once these are gone, I will never buy them again. I'm like, I'm not going to open a contract. And they flew out of there in like 6 days. And people were like, you can't find cannolis anywhere. And I'm like, you just got to realize that like, even if what you're doing is cinnamon rolls and that's what everybody else does, maybe your cinnamon rolls are different. So like, until you put yourself out there, like I learned this a lot in like the cosmetology world, like the way you wax eyebrows is not the way that everybody else does. The way you do a beard trim is not the same. And that's what people want. People want different things. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And also don't be afraid that have 3 plans. And when A doesn't work, jump to B. And when B doesn't work, jump to C. And when C doesn't work, well, then go back to another situation. Like sometimes it's going to take you, I mean, I'm 34. I'm now at the point where I'm like, oh, I love my job. I paid to go to cosmetology school, decided I didn't like it. I was an elementary school teacher for a long time. I didn't like it. I did retail for a long time. You know, like I didn't know until I always, you know, you always make the joke when it's like, when I'm older, you know, I want to be this when I grow up. I still am to the point where I'm like, well, I wonder what I'll be when I grow up. Like when I'm 60, I wonder what job I'll have. But I'm grateful to the, you know, Flowers by LD downtown that we're in their building, but I have the ability to help with flowers and like gives me a creative outlet and different things. But, you know, LD and I have had that conversation a lot too. The LD's like, I didn't think anybody wanted another flower shop. You know, he took over Flowers by Ferrer when it closed 39 years ago. And he said, I didn't think anybody was going to support something like that. And he goes, we've been busy for almost 40 years. He goes, so it's just, but look at even like comparing flower shops or like pastry shops. Like I look at Round River Baking, like I'm not in a competition with Matt. Matt makes sourdough. Like I'm not making, and even if Matt started selling cupcakes, we're going to make them differently. So don't be afraid to try to market something that, and that is another thing, like try to do something that people aren't doing. Like if everyone in this town makes caramel apples, well, make something else. Like make caramel apples that are purple. Like, you know, or like find a different, like this. Like, I mean, who else was doing a Pocatello podcast? Nobody. But if someone started one in 2 weeks, they're going to do it different than what you're doing.
Oh, there are people that have.
Right. You're like, hey, you listen, here they come. Right. Oh. They're like, they're going to want to copy me.
I don't.
But you're going to do it different.
I've been copied my whole adult life.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes so blatantly that I was like, that is literally mine.
Yeah. And there have been times before that like people have said to us like, oh, you know, like we went and bought this French macaron that you made, and they would like describe it to me. And I'm like, oh, that isn't like, that's not for me. And they're like, no, like you, and I'm like, oh no, I did post that, like we did that design and that flavor, but like, that's not what we made. Mm-hmm. And I try really hard to take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment.
I'm like, you're copying us because you know it. And we are very well supported. Like we're very busy. So I'm grateful for that. And honestly, I look back at the beginning of my whatever, and I think Magnolia's Bakery, which is a really famous bakery here in the United States, like I took things from their menu that I was like, I'm also going to do a grasshopper cupcake. They don't own the flavors, so it's like, whatever. But there are times that you make like very specific items that it's like, well, maybe I made that before you did. But it's like, hey, girl, if you can make money and I can make money, let's both make money. Like, I think that's great. Which is another thing I tell people, like, our per capita, like with Chubbuck, is, I think I read the other day, it's like pushing like 90,000. And I want to say 90,000 people are not going to one bakery. So like, we need a few. So if you want to make the same cupcake as me, go for it. But let's just have different clients, you know. Like
I always just say, just clap for them. Yeah. Clap for yourself, because
clap
obviously you're doing something that is worth watching, and then clap for them as well, and wish them well.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
I mean,
and then secretively hope that yours sells better. But you know, that's just in the back of your business mind.
It depends on. I'm not the most competitive person.
Yeah. Oh, see, and I'm not either. And I struggle.
There are very few areas that there are some that I'm very competitive though. Like, and I have my own little things, but no, I just.
Well, it's like the show. Everybody's like, when you went into it, like, did you go to win? And I'm like, not really. I'm like, I wanted to win. I wanted the money. Like, of course, like it helped us financially. But I was like, I didn't go there and be like, I'm about to best these 9 people. And like, I'm going to take the prize. I'm like, if I do, cool. But like, sounds dumb to say I didn't go to win, but I didn't go to like best everybody out. Like if I was the winner, cool, which I was, which is amazing. But
well, that's actually I know we talked about it before we started recording, that I didn't want to be tacky. No, but let's talk about the money.
Yeah, let's
talk about it. So you won $100,000.
I did.
Okay.
I did.
If you don't mind, maybe repeat what you told me earlier.
Oh, sure. Yeah, totally. One of the scariest parts about winning money on a show like that is that they send you the full amount of money. So you're then responsible for the taxes, which was very scary. But I did have permission from the network to like meet with a CPA beforehand. And so she knew and kind of was Mindy at Jordan & Company. She's the best if you need a CPA.
I was going to say,
she's
throw
magical.
Her name out there.
I love her so much.
Mindy,
she literally,
good job.
Yes. Yes. And also Mindy is magical because I'm an idiot and I screw up my QuickBooks every time. And I think she like types and smiles at me like, oh, this is such a mess. But she's never said that.
Cute?
I take her a carrot cake and we solve our problems together. She's magical. So yes, thank you, Mindy. But
carrot cake solves all problems.
Hey, whatever I got to do to get in her good graces because she financially saves me every year. But I remember meeting with her and I was like, oh, they'll take the taxes out and whatever. And she's like, okay, like we'll see. So then when they gave me and it was funny, I was transferring money at the time from one account to another. And I like stopped dead. And I like looked at my sister and I was like, oh my gosh, it's here. And she's like, and you get the money after the show comes out. And so she was like, what do you mean it's here? And I like swiveled my laptop and she was like, oh my gosh, which screenshotted it like 14 times because I was like, never going to have this amount of money in this bank account ever again. But yeah, we had a lot of debt. That's another thing when you say advice for opening a business, it is a lot of money. And this isn't local, but they do help local people. So this was amazing. But there is a company based out of Montana and they're called MoFi. And I apologize to MoFi because I can't remember what their acronym is, but it's the Montana something. Anyway, they help small businesses get funding because I was told no by several banks here in town just because obviously I wanted to open a bakery. I was, much younger at the time. So they were like, yeah, no, we're not going to be able to do that.
Well, that was dumb.
Right.
No, I'm just
Which
kidding.
is so hilarious because I play bingo at the Elks Lodge every once in a while. And one of the guys that, I won't name drop banks, but one of the banks, he came up and he's like, well, we sure made a mistake not saying yes to that bank loan. And I was like, yes, you did. I'm like, because the show would just come out and I was like, well, in the future, maybe you should think about that. I was just giving him a hard time. But MoFi was able to help me kind of get the money so that I could do that. But yeah, it helped us get out of all of our debt, which was amazing. My sister and I are planning a trip that we're getting ready to go on in the spring, which was kind of we knew it would be about 1.5 to 2 years for the crazy and we finally have slowly like maybe 4 to 5 people are coming in a month that are like, oh my gosh, we saw you on the show. And before it was like 8 to 15 a day. So now like we've leveled out to where like I feel like I can leave and it's not like I'm always very sad when people will message me and be like, hey, we came to the bakery to meet you and like you weren't there. So I've tried to kind of live there to make sure I can kind of meet everybody. But yeah, it got us out of a lot of debt and I bought some really big upgrades for the bakery. We bought a big 20-quart, like big Hobart mixer and we bought an industrial sized AC unit that's for like an 1,800 square foot garage and we're in like a 400 square foot kitchen. So it is for rigid in about 30 seconds, which is what I wanted. The electrical guy putting it in, he's like, now and I was like, but just put it in. I'm like, I know you don't get it, but when that oven's been on at 400 degrees for 8 hours, I'm literally melted. So I'm like, and literally that thing starts going and you can feel like all of the hair stick up on your arm. And I'm like, this was worth the money. And every time I turn that on, I'm like, glad I went and did that show because it was expensive to put in. But yeah, little things like that. And I've been able to travel to go see, like I went to New York a couple months ago to see Larry from the show, been to LA to see Felicia, went to Albuquerque. We're all headed back to Albuquerque in March to see Ron. And then it's really cool. And I'll be posting about this so that people that are listening in the spring, 4 or 5 of the bakers from the show are coming to the bakery and they're going to do like a little thing. So I'll keep that posted. Felicia came and quick thank you to Pocatello we had a line out the door for like 3 hours and she was exhausted at the end. She's like, this is nuts. And I'm like, this is what my life has been like for a year. I'm like, so I'm glad that you got to experience it, but she's so lovely. So I'm glad that everybody got to meet her. But yeah, it's intimidating to be given that amount of money because you don't want to blow it. You don't want to, but owning a business, I'd gotten myself into, some credit card trouble and stuff like that.
But did you want to blow it?
Absolutely, I want it.
Okay.
I will say I did.
Let's just tell the truth.
I did go buy a brand new Jeep. I did go do that. And I had always wanted
Bougie.
a bright red. It's firecracker red, actually.
Yay.
But I had always wanted one. And so I went into the dealership and I didn't go buy it outright. I leased it like a normal person. But because everybody's like, you just went and paid cash. I'm like, I don't know how much money you think $100,000 is after the government takes your taxes.
Well,
but
it's not
buy a new Jeep and pay off your taxes. But it was funny. I didn't say anything to his name was Rich. He doesn't work there anymore, but I didn't say anything. And then a few minutes later, one of the salespeople was like, hey, you won that TV show. And I was like, we weren't going to talk about that because then you're going to think I have a lot of money. But that was the one splurge thing because everybody asks, like, you had to have I bought a really big turquoise ring. I bought myself that for winning.
You didn't get a squash blossom?
No, but I'll talk to Sandra Lee. We'll get matching ones.
Okay.
Maybe she'll just give me hers. But no, and
Is she coming?
Oh my gosh, I wish.
Oh.
I actually ran into.
I was like, can I sleep at the shop?
Yeah, you sure can. She's amazing. I
won't even be able to talk to her. I'll just stare.
It's really funny, actually. I'll tell you this story quickly, but the show wrapped in November. And then we go to the Las Vegas market every year in January to buy all of our stuff. And my sister Ashley and I were walking through the Bellagio and we just found the Bellagio gardens and everything. And Ashley said, there's a woman back there trying to get your attention. And I said, no, there is not. And she's like, yeah, she's blonde. Like, she's like running towards us. And I make this joke all the time. I'm like, there's a lot of blonde women chasing you through hotels in Las Vegas. I'm like, she's working, give her a break. But I told Ashley, no offense to the workers, I support them. So I told, and by support them, I mean not support them. You know what I mean. So
I'm not cutting this
yeah,
out.
No, please. I love it. I'm all about all the jobs that make all the money. So I'm here to support.
You're just
I'm supporting
everybody.
them emotionally, not financially. Let's clear that up. But I told my sister, I said, keep walking. She obviously doesn't know who we are. So I heard her yell my name and I was like, oh, maybe she does know me or whatever. So I turned around and here comes this woman with this really tight ponytail and these big glasses and this big cheetah cardigan. And I was like, who in the world is this? And she took her glasses off and it was Sandra Lee. So I tell people people all the time, I'm like, who can say that they filmed a TV show with Jason Biggs for 30 days and got chased through the Bellagio by Sandra Lee? I'm like, not very many people. So those are my two like dying whatever that I have. But yeah, she like ran up and hugged me and she whispered in my ear when she hugged me. She said, I'm here with my sister. I can't talk about the show. And I said, oh yeah, absolutely. I said, I'm actually here with my sister. Well, she didn't say Lee. So she just said, hi. I said, this is my sister, Ashley. She goes, hi, Ashley. I'm Sandra. It's so nice to meet you. And she introduced me to her sister, who was very lovely. And so my cute sister, she's going to hate that I'm telling this story, but we walked out of the Bellagio and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was so crazy. Like, I can't believe she came and said hi to me. And she's like, oh, do you know her from Pocatello? It's my favorite story to tell people. And I stopped dead outside the Bellagio and I said, no, that's the woman who just financially changed our lives. And she goes, that was Sandra Lee. I'm like, how many Sandras do you know? I said, but I will say she usually has, all this hair and makeup and this, big fancy hair or whatever. And she didn't at the time. She looked beautiful like she always does, but she wasn't all done up and she didn't have a squash blossom on and a big dress, whatever. So I was just like, my partner was picking us up. So we got in the car and I said, oh, do you see that lady in the cheetah cardigan? And he's like, oh yeah, do you know her? And I said, yeah, so do you. And he's like, what? And she turned her head and he's like, oh my gosh, that's Sandra Lee. Like, we should say hi to her. And I was like, I just saw her. And so I wrote her a little letter thing after that I was like, hey, thanks for doing that. Like, that was neat to like be able to see you again and like whatever. So that is probably one of the more crazy, whatever, that I'm like, being chased through the Bellagio by Sandra Lee was pretty wild.
That would be cool.
But yeah, it was a life-changing amount of money for sure. So it went quick because we had a lot of debt. But yeah, we're out of that now. We're in a really good spot financially. And so it was a life changer for sure. So.
Wow.
Very, very thankful for sure.
Well, you just talked about a few things. So my next question is what's next for you now that the show has aired? It's been a while.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've had lines out the door.
Yeah,
and
it's been pretty crazy. Yeah. Very supportive, very thankful to Pocatello for that. And Idaho Falls. I mean, because I grew up in Idaho Falls, everybody's come from there. And I was working at a salon in Salt Lake City at the time. So like they've talked about me a lot, which was great. But yeah, I think just kind of keep trekking on. I mean, I think a lot of people think that with that amount of money, you were going to open some like, franchise chain and whatever. And we're not. The goal, I think, just down the road is it provides a job for my sister and I. And so to keep her employed, obviously, is my biggest goal. But yeah, it just gives me the opportunity I feel accomplished being a business owner. And so I do like that. And I love being involved in things like this and being able to go to the school yesterday and to have people think that you're cool is a very nice whatever. But to hear other local...
To have people think that you're cool,
yeah.
You mean to know that you're cool.
Well, you're very sweet. It's still in my mind, I'm like, I'm not so much. But, which to tell you the story really quick too, there was a little girl that came in the one time and I was trying to dumb it down in my mind because it was during all of the chaos I literally would stand at that counter for about 8 hours a day and be, oh my gosh, and it wasn't fake. It just was a lot of like, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching the show. Oh, I loved it too. It just was a lot of like, tell me about Jason Biggs, kind of thing. But this little girl came in and I was clearly in a mood of trying to like dumb it down. And I think she was like 8. And she goes, oh my gosh, I watched you on Netflix. I'm so nervous to meet you. And I was like, oh, please don't be nervous to meet me. I was like, I am just a baker from Idaho. I'm like, I am not a big deal. And she just straight, like stone face said, yeah, well, I watched you on Netflix like I watch everybody else on Netflix that's famous. And I was like, well, you got me there. You are right. Yeah, I am on, and to kids, I'm like, I am a famous person to you because I'm on TV. To me, I'm like, oh, good grief, it's down, kind of thing. But yeah, it's cool to be able to be that for people, that people are excited to meet me and things like that. And my parents, it's very cute. Both my parents are very like shy. And so like at the Eastern Idaho State Fair, people would come up and be like, oh my gosh, you were on that baking show. And my dad is just like the proudest, and my mom too, obviously, but they're both just like, oh my gosh, this is wild that people like, or like the first time we got recognized in public, we were in Rexburg right after my brother got married. And this lady, we were at a pizza pie cafe there. And the lady was like, oh my gosh, we watched you on that show. And both my parents are just like beaming that they're like, oh my gosh, somebody like knows who our son is. So that is always kind of a bizarre whatever. But yeah, moving forward, just keep baking away and helping with the flowers at the shop. And
in April or the spring.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Headed to see Ron. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, just kind of reconnect with everybody. And then coming in the spring, a few of the bakers are coming to Pocatello. That's more so what you were talking about.
We'll
sorry.
We'll see. I'm going to actually, I'll probably be hitting, that's actually
no, let's do it. Yeah,
my
we can
favorite
talk
time of year.
I'll
hit you up around
what
that
we
time.
also could
Maybe
do
we'll
too.
bring it. They'd be cool.
If they would come in and chat, they would love that so much. They're actually going to go with me back to the special needs class at Pocatello so that they can meet them. So I'm so excited. But Kat is so excited to be here because I tell people, I'm the winner of this show. Kat is people's princess. So they love her and she deserves all of that but Felicia, man, when she was here, people were, and she was blown away that they're like, we're so excited to meet you. And Ron, he's an older gentleman. He just is hysterical. And I'm so excited for him for people to meet him. But yeah, I'm hoping it'll be Felicia, Kat, Ron, and Jeff. So there'll be 5, and maybe Jen, but Jen's getting ready to have a baby. Maybe she had that baby today. It's coming quick. But so congratulations, Jen, if you had your little girl today. But it'll be probably about 5 of us. And so, but yeah, we would love to, they would love to come and chat with you.
That would be great.
I tell people all the time, like, they looked amazing on TV. They're some of the most incredible people. And not even just bakers, like humans. Like they just are. And I tell people, this is very cool. This ribbon, the money was amazing. The experience. I left with 9 and I should say, if we're being real, I left with 6 very, very close friends. It's 6 people I talk to almost every day. You know, things happen in each other's lives. Everybody knows. Jen was having like some fertility issues. So like she's taken us along that journey. And like Felicia's having surgery tomorrow. So we all have been talking about like, oh, we need to send her flowers. And I had surgery on my elbow. There was a big bouquet on my porch. Like it just says, we've all tried really hard to be there for each other. Yeah, of course. Okay. Could you imagine? No. And even Felicia.
Although there are other great flowers.
Yeah, there are.
I love Christine's as well.
Yes, we love A&J. We love Pinehurst. And yes.
And
he has my whatever, of course, because we're in there. But yeah, Felicia did say, she's like, well, I called LD so I didn't get in trouble. And I was like, well, yes, I would hope so. You ding dong. Really, they just called Josh and then Josh made it happen. But yeah, no, I'll keep you posted on that for sure because they would love to do that. So.
Well, one of the things we talked about before you came to visit with us was maybe some type of holiday recipe or
totally.
Christmas cookie.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, so right now we're making a lot of sugar cookies.
I'm gonna type it out so I can add it on there.
I'll tell you.
So what is one of your favorite go-to besides carrot cake? I mean, you can't give us that.
I can't give you that. That and the cheesecake. Everybody wants those too. Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Carrot cake is my very, very favorite.
Yeah.
So oh my God. I'm not supposed to have it.
The thing I love
Don't tell my coach, but can I have some carrot cake?
Absolutely. The thing I love about our carrot cake is it doesn't have any nuts in it and it doesn't have any raisins in it. And we make ours with an orange base instead of pineapple. So it's just kind of a different whatever. But I'm going to give you more so a little tip on sugar cookies than what I am recipe-wise.
Okay.
But so
sugar cookie tip.
Yes. One of the things that I love to do the most is I love to finish the bottom of a sugar cookie before you bake it. So I refer to it as doodling all of our cookies. So we either do a lemon doodle or a snickerdoodle or things like that, but we combine a combination of just cinnamon and sugar, or you can buy, if you don't want to make it, which is foolish because it would be much cheaper to make, but you can buy pre-made cinnamon sugar, but we put that just underneath, like just a roll out sugar cookie base. And then you just kind of push the cookie into it and bake it. And then when you pull that cookie off, you have like a snickerdoodle base, but you still have the ability to do the top. Or another one we do a lot is we will zest lemons into sugar. And then we will like emulsify the sugar into it just with our fingers so that like all of the oils get into the sugar, and we spread that underneath it. And then that makes like a lemon doodle, or we do like an orange doodle, things like that. But it just is a way to then like take that cookie and elevate it. But that really isn't the reason I say like we don't have some secretive sugar cookie recipe. We use probably the same sugar cookie recipe everybody else does. Sugar, butter, eggs, vanilla, all those things. I do use vanilla bean paste in everything we do, mostly because I like the little flecks of vanilla bean paste and everything, which is cute because kids every once in a while are like, this has dirt on it. And I'm like, not dirt. just really, that little single pod's probably 30 cents. I'm like, they're just expensive. But yeah, we love to do that on the bottom of any type of the cookies that we do, just because it just levels it up enough. But like I said, we don't, and that is one thing about the bakery I tell people a lot. Like, we use probably a normal croissant recipe that everybody else does. We just have more expensive machines than what you have at home. So we have
Or
like,
well, in the texture, you've done it.
Dough sheeters, and we have proofers. And I tell people all the time, everybody can make a good loaf of bread, a good sugar cookie, and a good, that's not what I meant to say, a good loaf of bread, a good croissant, and a good cinnamon roll if you have a proofer. Like, and I tell people, everyone could frost an amazing looking cupcake if you have a big enough piping tip. So I'm like, a lot of it is just the tools that you're using. But yeah, little things like that, we love that. We love to just add. And I think it's all natural things that really improve stuff. So lemon zest, things like that, putting lemon juice and stuff. Like oftentimes I put lemon zest like in our graham cracker crust, like in our cheesecake, just because I think it gives it just a little added level of citrus. So just the little things like that. But yeah, Christmas time especially, we love those snickerdoodles. So I'm
going to try that.
Yeah. It's delicious. Yeah.
My middle son was in a debate. He was the debate club president at Highland.
Yeah.
And we would sell cookies for his fees to like go to nationals.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
And I still to this day get hit up for my snickerdoodles and my pistachio cookies.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
I'm going to bring you a pistachio.
Yeah, no, please.
I would have some imposter syndrome.
But
I think with all the people that freak out, I'm like,
it's so funny.
Maybe I'll be like, this is a great cookie.
I actually told the kids at Pokey yesterday, they said something to me about, oh, my mom makes a great cake, but like, I bet she'd be embarrassed to like have you eat it. And I said, the funny part is, I think that everybody thinks as a baker that you're like super judgmental. You're just really thankful to eat something you didn't have to make yourself. Yeah. So people ask us all the time, like, how do you not like just eat that all day long? And I'm like, well, I tell people like the prime example is if you work at McDonald's, you probably don't eat McDonald's anymore. You work at Raising Cane's, which is coming to town. You probably don't eat that anymore. I'm not eating a cannoli or a brownie after. I do love our brownies, so that I shouldn't say I do eat a brownie every once in a while. But like, I am not eating a slice of cake or cheesecake very often. Every once in a while, we did just make a German chocolate cheesecake the other day, and I did eat a piece of that, and I was like, oh, this is good, whatever. But it's like, once you've made 80 cheesecakes, it's like you're not eating cheesecake anymore. But, we're still in the phase of like, please bring a cheesecake to the birthday party. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I don't have an issue doing that, obviously. But yeah, I love when people bring stuff in, and people are always apologetic because they're like, I brought this cake and like, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, please stop apologizing. I didn't have to make it. I'm sure it's delicious. So.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it.
Yeah. It's great.
Well, to wrap things, I have a couple of closing questions that I wanted to ask. So now that you've been on a couple of different Food Network and Netflix, and obviously the fair. Now that you've been doing all this stuff after leaving cosmetology and just kind of pursuing your passion, the whole point of Hello Pocatello is it is a love letter to Pocatello. Yeah. So what do you feel that home means to you now that you've done all of this?
Support would probably be the base word that I would use. I don't think you realize until something like this happens how much support you have from every facet of your life, your family, your friends, local community, other business owners, things like that. And I still am, and I'll touch back on like being supported by other local businesses. Like Mocha Madness has this big write up with the picture of me holding this ribbon, like, and people will come in all the time and they'll be like, hey, like we saw your picture at Mocha Madness. Like they love you in there. And they don't even realize that like, and Angela has a thing that says like, our baker makes all of this stuff, but people don't like, they just see my face. They see that it's in there and they and Glean and Idle Coffee Company, like they posted the newspaper article like up in their window at their shops. And like, it just is, you don't realize how important all of that is at the end of the day. But yeah, I would say community also is another word I would use. Like, I mean, we were just at like Brewfest, Oktoberfest, whichever. I think I always call it Oktoberfest because it's in October, but I think it was Brewfest that we were at. But there's so many people there that were like, oh my gosh, we saw your show. Like, we loved it. Our kids loved it. Like, I want you to meet my daughter. And it's like, you don't realize how much support you have. Like, I can't imagine, like, Kat and I have this conversation a lot because she lives in New York City. And I'm like, I can't imagine living in a town where, like, she has a lot of support there. But I'm like, you live in a town of millions of people. Like, she's like, and Felicia even said, like, I go to the grocery store, people don't know who I am. I'm like, oh, that must be bizarre. Because like every checker at Winco and Costco know me by name because I live at their grocery stores. So not so much local, but local enough that I'm grateful that, they're there for me. But yeah, like, I mean, the Hobby Lobby cashiers know my name. Like, it just like, I live at those stores because I own a business where I need that stuff. But you don't realize like, and I think another really cool thing that happened is like a lot of like the social media outreach that I got, that people were like, hey, my son's going through a hard time. And like, he was able to watch you on the show and like was thankful for the, the kind of person that you were, or how you acted or what you said, and that little things like that. Like, I don't think you realize that also community isn't always just within your city limits. Like the community that you build around projects and shows and things like this, like it expands to everywhere, but like it does come back to the core of like, I am a part of Eastern Idaho. And I like to say I love Pocatello. Idaho Falls is my home, obviously, and like I love Blackfoot just because of the fair. And so like for me, like Southeast Idaho, things like that, it's like I am grateful to be a part of all three of those. Like people in Blackfoot know who I am because of the fair and because of the show and things like that. But yeah, Pocatello has been and I just am shocked by how many people have come in and like, you know, even said like, oh, you know, we don't buy flowers very often, but like we just wanted to come in and like, and I've had a lot of people this I think is very cool, like have said like, hey, like we, you know, are not here to buy anything, but like we just wanted to come in and tell you that, you know, we thought you did a great job. We're really proud of you and really could care less about that. Like I don't, you know, I'm here to take your money, obviously, because I own a business, but I'm like, that's amazing that you took the time to come in and even say hi or, you know, the letters. And there's a program and I botcher it every time, but I believe it's called it's either the NK program or the NKA program, but it's through ISU. And it's like we just did a floral decorating class at the Senior Citizen Center. I went and spoke at one of their things. They're going to be mad at me because I spoke at their thing and I don't even know what it's called. I do think it's called the NK program. Something knowledge. Anyway, they're great. Whoever you are listening to that, thank you for doing what you do because it's great for our community. But being there, it was these like 40 women that were at this class and every single one of them was like, oh my gosh, we loved your show. And it goes to show that from 8 years old to 80, like people are so supportive in a town like this. And yeah, I get you were on TV. So people think that that's cool. But it's like, you know, the day, one of the really cool, whatever, like right after the bakery opened, a lady, I didn't even know her. I'd never met her before. She came in and gave me a check for $2,500. And she's like, I just wanted to give this to you. I'm proud of you for opening a local business. Like, you know, I hope that this goes amazing for you. And I was like sobbing like all day. And now she's become like a dear friend of mine. But I was like, this is the most bizarre, like, why are you giving me money and you don't know me? And I'm like, we live in a community of very, very good people. And so, but yeah, I think the community support has been probably the biggest.
That's the best part.
Oh, it's amazing.
The people here. And they really do come together. We actually just wrapped up the Sit It Down coat drive.
Okay, yeah.
And
which is amazing.
Yeah, and it, you know, it's just crazy how people
people are very
everybody shows up, you know. We had a box over at Image Designers and, you know, their clients were bringing them in. Everybody it was great. And I love this area.
Oh, it's very giving people.
Well, so last question.
Sure.
Any message you'd like to share with Pocatello and the people who support you?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I immediately start to get emotional even talking about stuff like this. But yeah, it's I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the people here. And I mean, Idaho Falls, people like that obviously have supported me, but Pocatello, I mean, this is my home now. It's where my business is. Like I said, I get emotional talking about it, but I've had a lot of support from people like LD and people like that are local business owners. But I have a lot of support from a lot of people that don't have a lot of money that come in and they tell me that like, oh, we don't have very much money, but like we wanted to come in and support you. And it means a lot because I know our stuff is expensive. I know the
cream puffs.
And it's right. It's the cream. It's the cream and the boomerang that sucks them in. But I'm a very firm believer in stating that as a local business owner, you're not anybody without the people that are coming to support you. So like you can have, you know, money in the bank, you can have financial backing. If you don't have people that are supporting you, you're not ever going to go anywhere. You know, we are the contact pastry chef for Idaho State University. We are, you know, we do a lot of things with blended orthodontics. Like we do a lot with a lot of local businesses that if we didn't have support like that, I don't want to say I wouldn't have been on shows like that or things like that, but I wouldn't have had a business and it would have continued going on. You know, we're going on 5 years in February. And so it just is a lot of appreciation. I know my sister feels the exact same way. I know LD feels the same way. Like we feel very supported in the community. Fortunate also is a word I would use. I feel very fortunate that we're going on 5 years. There's a lot of people that don't make it 3 years, a year. And so, you know, we opened during COVID, which was a sketchy decision, but we don't have a sit down area in the bakery. So people were able to just pick it up and leave and people were very supportive during that time. And so it's just, and I love to hear people say like, oh, we were at, you know, Glean or, you know, Jumbo's or wherever. And they told us to come here or like, and, you know, we do the same thing all the time. Like, where should we have lunch? And I'm very thankful for the amount of support that this town has, but more than anything, the continued amount of support. Because you can come into a bakery, you can eat a cream puff, for example. It's good and you don't go back. Or, you know, we all do that. We all, you know, I bought a shirt at wherever and I never went back there again, like, you know, kind of thing. Or I got my hair done here and never went back. But like people have continued. I mean, there are people we see at the bakery 2 to 3 times a week Or we call her a Claire girl on Friday, and she's the sweetest. I won't say her name, but like she's the sweetest. But like she comes in every Friday. She buys an eclair. I try to always make sure that I have one for her, and it just is that like meeting new people is amazing. But you know, the bread and butter, things like that, like it's amazing the people that continue to support you day in and day out. And so yeah, I'm very thankful for Pocatello and what they've done really since the beginning of me baking. I mean, I baked at home for 5 years. Before I ever opened a shop, I had a lot of support then too. And so, and even I'd go as far as to say I'm really thankful for like Southeastern Idaho Public Health and like the people that keep our businesses up and going. And like I work with Tracy there, and like they've just developed a new thing that we all have to have these like HOSUP plans and all this stuff. And like they've all just been very like patient and amazing at like trying to help us work through everything. So like local businesses are very supportive. Like it takes time, and it's a lot of effort on everybody's part, but I'm very fortunate to say there's never been a time that I haven't felt supported in this town, and that I haven't felt that people have been there for us. And, when we've posted like, oh, things have been kind of slow this week, like this is what we still have available, like people are immediately in there. Or like friends of mine are like, oh my gosh, we didn't know that things had been slow. Like I need $100 bakery box. I'm going to take it to the hospital, or things like that. And it just like,
awesome.
It's just the support here is amazing. And so but yeah, I'm very thankful.
Well, and thank you for giving back. Thank you for doing that. I love that you do that. It's something that I say all the time in like speaking.
Yeah.
Like when you go sit on a panel or you speak at a luncheon.
Yeah.
I always say that the best form of marketing is just going out and giving back to your community. You don't,
Well, and I tell people all the time, like we donate a cheesecake. You have no idea how much of an outreach that gives you. That people hear the word donate, that's a big deal. But also your name is tied to all of that. And it's a positive thing. And it also brings a lot of business to you. And, I've had a lot of people over the years say we used to do a lot with the Idaho State University Symphony. And we have so much business to this day that people remind me like, oh my gosh, you remember when you made those cheesecakes for that auction that we did? Like we want another one of those, or, little things like that. And it's also really cool to hear people be like, oh, have you ever had the carrot cake like at the Palette restaurant? Like it's so good. Like, have you ever had that? And I'm like, it's mine. I'm like, so it's always a very neat thing. I had a lady the other day say, oh, you've got to try making a cheesecake like what they have at the Palette. Like it would sell so good here. And I was like, that is mine.
So I have that.
So yeah.
Okay.
So it is very cool. Or like my brother Bryce lives here in town, and he'll tell me all the time, like, oh, I was at, Jim Dandy and people were talking about you. Or so it's nice to usually positive.
Do you get the Bigfoot buns?
No,
okay.
Idaho Coffee Company doesn't. They're amazing. They're so good.
So I everybody besides Local Madness, I know Emma, I know Deidre, both business owner Pocatello members. And then Ryan and Lindy, I used to work with them at Cafe Disco.
I adore them. So yeah, I just am very fortunate to be part of all their businesses. So
well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited that I got to have a full conversation with you, because we've always met in passing.
Yes, we have.
But now I'm like, no, we gotta hang out.
Yeah, no, I love it.
We would have fun.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Also, I wanted to point out that it's Cody's birthday today.
Happy birthday, Cody.
Get over here.
I have known that, I would have brought you some cake.
Get over here. In front of the camera.
Yeah, Cody, come say hi for your birthday. Happy birthday, Cody.